everybody to the June 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we get a roll call of members, please?
Veronica Pillar.
Here.
Lee Shirtliff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Shauna Black.
Here.
Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Here.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here. 13 members present. We have a quorum. There are no proclamations tonight. There are public hearing. I always do. Thank you. Okay, before we start the actual meeting, we are going to do the public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing. And the announcement, the Tompkins County Legislature will hold a public hearing at 5:30 in Legislature chambers concerning the proposal local law number A of 2025, a local law overriding tax levy limit for 2026. If anybody wishes to speak on the public hearing, now is the time to do so. If you wanted to talk on any other topic, that will come a little later during the regular legislature meeting. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to the public hearing? Okay, seeing no one, I'm closing that public hearing and opening the regular meeting of the legislature. Now, no proclamations. There are no executive sessions that I'm aware of. If anybody feels differently, you should come speak to me before the end of the meeting. As far as reordering of business, I would like to move up resolutions L and M. And I think I'd like to try something different than we usually do. I think I would like to do them right now before privilege of the floor so that staff that are either present or online listening can go home. So any objections to reordering L and M? Okay, then let's start with resolution L right now. Resolution L is from the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. And Lee Shirtliff, can you go ahead and move that?
Resolution L, appropriation from contingent fund, terminal pay, Department of Planning and Sustainability, Transportation Planning ID number 13237. So moved.
Veronica seconds. Any discussion on resolution L? Okay, seeing none, ready for a vote then? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is unanimous. Carries. Thank you. And Lee, we'll get back to you later with the rest of your stuff. And then resolution M from the Health and Human Services Committee, Travis Brooks.
Resolution M, budget adjustment, Department of Social Services, DSS, year-end 2024 transfer ID 13249.
Is there a second? Veronica seconds. Okay, for reasons I can't explain, this vote needs 2/3 to pass. Any discussion?
Can somebody speak to this, or is there anybody here to
I think we have a choice.
speak to it?
To talk about the resolution itself?
Yes.
Lori, thank you.
So this was for a year-end cleanup, if you will. The Department of Social Services had exceeded the budget allocation for the department as a whole, which we discovered during the audit. It was due to some daycare and childcare increases, as well as increase in Medicaid weekly shares. We were aware of the increase in Medicaid weekly shares at the beginning of the year, but chose to wait till the end of the year to see if they had enough money in their budget to cover it. They did not, so we are using the mandated contingency fund that they had set money aside a few years ago to cover this expense. As there is a resolution that authorizes me to make these kinds of transfers at year end, but because this one was so large, I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Randy?
I appreciate that. So the mandated reserve, is that what you said?
There was, we created a mandated contingency fund years ago, and then I think it was 2 years ago, they got quite a substantial amount of money back from the state, and we put it in there, which put it into a reserve. We put the whole thing, the mandated contingency fund, into a reserve, and we're using that money to cover this shortfall.
And was that reserved specifically for Department of Social Services, or
Yes.
is that?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll support the resolution, but it is a lot of money. And in case anybody was thinking of voting against this, what would happen if it was voted down?
Well, we would have a finding in the audit for going over budget. I don't know beyond that, but we'd probably have to have legal involved in how to handle that.
And we've already allocated the money in 2024 for daycare expenses, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Did you want to speak?
Yes, I have a question. Is this money being taken from the tax stabilization reserve or from a different reserve?
Yes, it's the tax stabilization reserve, which originated from this mandated contingency fund.
Any other discussion? Greg?
Of this fund, how much does the 1.4, I mean, other than 1.49 million, what's left, I guess, or what's the total amount in that fund, or what was set aside in reserve?
I think I would like to confirm that and get back to you, but if I was going to make a guess, I think there was like 1.7 in there, and we're using the 1.4.
And then when we formed that reserve, was there a mandate on what the funded amount of that reserve needed to be?
I believe it was worded in a way that said for unfunded mandate kind of situations. I don't have the exact wording in front of me, but the money that funded it specifically came from DSS, from the state, for DSS purposes, but we didn't label it DSS specific, but rather the unfunded mandate type situation.
And is there an expectation that we'll have to refund this reserve to the tune of the 1.49 million?
So my recommendation that I've been talking to Maury about is to dissolve that particular reserve, that stabilization. So there's certain places where we can move that money to. And so going forward next year, I believe that is on Maury's radar to look at dissolving the rest of that reserve and not having that reserve anymore.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that we're not doing something that then we're going to be, come budget season, asked to, refill or have a plan to refill in some way.
Thank you for the information, Laurie.
Sure.
And so I'm not sure if you or somebody else can answer this question. So, but I think part of it, you said the money originally came from the state for this
Yes.
reserve. And so we can move the remaining balance somewhere else. And so what would we do? Are we going to have some other reserve? Are we looking at forming some other reserve for unfunded mandates, but maybe that gets into our budgeting for next year?
Yes, so typically you could either set up a reserve for that or use your contingency funding. There's various things you can do for that, but this particular one was tied, I want to say tied directly to that DSS refund from the state. And we use that specifically to put into this mandate contingency fund, which then went to the reserve.
Okay, so,
That makes sense.
yeah, and then maybe this is to my colleagues or administration, but so maybe we want to put a pin in that and think about, talking about that at our next budget meeting, especially whether their services are mandated or not, because we could see some services that we want to help provide not be funded.
Okay, in late-breaking news, it looks like we have a situation that we might have to withdraw this resolution and send it back to committee. Maury, can you speak to this a little?
Yes. The tax stabilization reserve funds are not available to be expended at this time until corrective action is taken with respect to the manner in which that fund was established. That is indeed on my radar. It was one of the several projects that are outstanding and need to be taken care of, and this can be done promptly. I was hoping to have it done before Lori departed, but we need to fix that reserve before anything can be withdrawn from it.
So discussion,
Anything deeper than that would need to be an advice of counsel or executive session.
Lori, did you want to say something?
I just want to let you know that in doing so, that will hold up the audit and the AFR reporting to the state.
Which is already late.
Greg?
Could we amend this resolution to take it from contingent fund or our other reserve funds with the expectation that when this tax stabilization reserve was corrected, those monies would be available to replace from the general contingent fund or reserve?
You're asking if we can take it from another fund right now?
Yeah, just so it doesn't hold up
Yeah.
the accounting piece of it.
Deborah?
Yeah, the only concern I would have is that when we set up these various funds for specific purposes, I can't remember which ones are really super restricted to whatever purpose they were created for and which ones we could use. So if we took the money out of the general fund right now with the expectation that we would put it back when we free up this reserve fund, is that a permissible purpose for the reserve fund, or would we be?
That is something that requires further review and analysis. I would need to address that with you in a privileged setting.
Yeah, that would be my only concern with this.
So, Maura, your advice is to not do that at this time?
My advice is to not do anything with the tax stabilization reserve at this time.
But could we take the money out of somewhere else and at a future time transfer that money from the tax stabilization reserve?
Possibly.
But maybe not.
Possibly not. The tax stabilization reserve needs to be used for purposes that are specifically set forth in the tax stabilization reserve statute. So in other words, if we're winding down the tax stabilization reserve, it has to go someplace where the statute specifically directs. Is the reserve usable for this particular expense? Is a matter under analysis. And so in order to discuss that, it would need to be in a privileged setting.
Ann?
Yeah, two things. I'm just wondering about executive session to discuss it, if we think that would be helpful either now or at some point during the meeting before we finish being able to vote on things, or, you know, with the audit, how big of a difference is it if we brought this back, and I think our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight.
The AFR is already several weeks overdue, right?
So, yeah, the annual financial report to the state was due April 30th, and the audit draft is supposed to be coming to me this week before I leave, the draft.
And so what would that mean? I don't understand what that would mean if we waited 2 weeks. So the draft is coming to you and you need to get it back? I don't understand the next steps.
Yeah, so the sooner that we review the draft, the sooner they get the final out, the sooner it comes to you, as well as the sooner that we can get it to the state to accompany the AFR.
Okay.
Rich?
Is there an estimated time frame to get this corrective action done? And is there action we need to take on the legislature?
The corrective action is something that once it's adopted by the legislature will take a period of 2 to 3 months to work through the process. The only so it's not something that can be fixed in 2 weeks. It's something that can be fixed. I can say that if the county was to come up with another place to fill this gap, that the money in the tax stabilization reserve wouldn't go to waste. It just may be that wouldn't follow a direct path from that reserve back to here. It may have to go to someplace else, and then the money from someplace else comes back to here. It's basically following the cookbook of reserve policies in Section 6 of the General Municipal Law, which has different rules for different types of reserves.
Amanda.
I'd like to request that we have an executive session to understand this at the end of the meeting tonight and hold off on voting on this right now and move along with our meeting.
Okay, what would that motion be? Can someone clarify that for me? To table it?
We would need a motion to table it till later in the meeting.
Postpone.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Amanda, I think Amanda has moved it.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
Second.
Deborah seconded it. So the motion is to postpone consideration of this resolution until later in the same meeting, and we would have an executive session first. Discussion. Greg?
Do we need to state that action may or may not take place coming out of executive session?
Yep.
Once we go into executive session, yes.
I have no objection.
Yeah, if it's at the end of the meeting, I'll note that that's a courtesy. It's not a legal requirement, but that's a courtesy that we provide to the public when we remember.
Great.
Mike Sigler?
What's the justification of moving it to executive session?
It would be legal
Advice of counsel.
Legal advice?
Any other discussion? The motion is to postpone the resolution. Okay, let's have a vote then. All in favor of postponement? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Resolution M has been postponed. And now we're going to go back to the regular order of the agenda. I thought that was going to be quick and easy. I was wrong. So public, thank you. Thank you for waiting. So the next thing we are doing is privilege of the floor for the public. If you're interested in speaking tonight, please go ahead and fill out one of these blue forms. You'll find them in the back of the room. Just bring them up to us. And we have quite a few people that wanted to speak tonight. If you are speaking, you're agreeing to some rules, which I will now read. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. First up is Don Barber.
Good evening. So I'm Don Barber, and I'm the chair of the Food Policy Council, and I'm also a member of Tompkins Food Future, which is a growing organization of 200 members and 30 businesses representing all food system sectors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about a matter of critical importance, food, which along with air and water is a necessity of life. 90% of the food consumed in Tompkins County is imported from huge agribusinesses, which despite their size are quite vulnerable. We saw this during the initial months of COVID. This vulnerability is the reason government, and especially local governments, must be aware and proactive to ensure an adequate supply of healthy food for its constituents. When the pandemic began, our local food system players were nimble, responsive, and quickly organized to create a local response. Now we're entering an unprecedented time of chaos brought on by a hostile takeover of our federal government operations, which are daily removing the underpinnings of public sector structures and safety nets. For the food system, we are seeing impacts on the production side with tariffs and trade wars and targeting farm workers for deportation. And on the distribution side, funding for school lunches, SNAP, and food bank supply chains are removed. This is on top of extreme weather events around the world. And I brought a fact sheet. This is sort of up to the date, but things are continually changing about what's happening to our food system as we speak. I want to again thank this legislature for being proactive in co-funding the food system plan development and then supplying funds to support the implementation of the plan, which you accepted in 2022. Your support has been an underpinning for the collaborating and facilitating and convening of food system players who have created the newly opened shared kitchen, conducted training and coaching for grant writing, growth of the food scraps recycling drop-off program, and multiple community forums to facilitate food system awareness and bring collaborative and cooperative players together. But the current disruption to our food system will require more resources to respond. So I'm alerting you that as we gain more and better information, an understanding of the steps the county can take to respond to today's reality, we will be back. A more local, resilient, equitable, and healthy food system is coming to fruition. Locally, we have the resources to respond to the current disruption with CSAs, farmers markets, and locally sourced restaurants. Remember, 94% of our Tompkins County farmland currently feeds animals. And we have a strong food security infrastructure of food pantries, the Friendship Donations Network, FoodNet, and Food Bank of the Southern Tier, to name a few. As we demonstrated at the outset of COVID, our community will come together when the food system is faltering, because we must.
Next up is Sarah Paradiso.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Paradiso. I am a member of the Tompkins County Food Policy Council and a member of Tompkins Food Future, and I'm also a local food access worker. I'm here to speak to you about the current state of the food system and the pressing need for coordinated, sustainable support as we prepare for the future we will be presented with. Right now, food pantries across the country are experiencing unprecedented demand, rising costs, reduced federal assistance, persistent barriers in social safety nets mean more to individuals and families than just turning to pantries. They're not a last resort, they're part of everybody's survival strategies. Despite being under-resourced, pantries continue to meet the challenges through deepening community collaboration. As one element in a diverse and broad food system, we are working across organizations and sectors. We are united in collective effort, calling for changes now that will bring a more resilient, equitable, and healthy system into the future. Organizations, including pantries, as well as farms, schools, nonprofit businesses, and more, are working together, sharing deliveries, combining storage, coordinating outreach, and making sure that food reaches those who need it most. This collective effort keeps the system functioning. Our pantries do incredible work. We've built this network, shared resources, and stayed open when our communities need us most. But goodwill isn't enough. We will need real investment in our local food system, including support in infrastructure, transportation, staffing, culturally appropriate local food access. Let's be very clear. Food pantries are not a solution to poverty or food insecurity. They are a response. And here in Tompkins County, we value community care and social justice. We have an opportunity to strengthen that response through deliberate investment and cooperative planning. In Tompkins County, we take pride in our commitment to equity and community well-being. Let's match those values with action. I urge you to consider food access not as charity, but as a public good, and to do work with us to build a resilient, equitable, and healthy system that serves everyone with dignity. Thank you.
Next up is Sharon Tregaskis.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Tregaskis. I've lived and eaten in Tompkins County since 1991. I currently serve as a community liaison for a $1.6 million USDA Food to Farm Assistance Award active in Tompkins County, co-run a small vegetable farm with my husband that supplies local restaurants and pantries, and volunteer as the food giveaway coordinator for No Mas Lagermas founder Ana Ortiz. Other speakers tonight will offer statistics about the impact federal budget and policy decisions are already having locally on farms, farmers, and our food insecure neighbors. The statistics can be overwhelming. I want to invite you to seize the opportunities already before you in the form of the food system plan that you endorsed unanimously. You'll also hear about partnerships already underway to support local farms and their work to feed our community. Such local investments keep funds in our community. As Cornell Ag economist Todd Schmidt has found, every dollar in output in agriculture generates an additional 49 cents in backward-linked non-agricultural industries. Every job in agriculture generates an additional 0.65, more than a half-time, non-agricultural job. And every $1 in gross domestic product generates an additional $1.14 in non-agricultural contributions to gross domestic product. In addition to boosting our local economy, supporting local farm-to-food initiatives help to feed our neighbors. At Nomas Lagermas, we've seen unprecedented demand during the time that we've had access to fresh, local foods. We're especially grateful that the legislature has funded a small pilot program through the Food Bank of the Southern Tier that will allow local pantries to continue purchasing from our local farms. We invite you to continue supporting this work and to hear more about how it's all going. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight.
Next up, Sarah DeFrank.
Good evening. My name is Sarah DeFrank. I'm a resident of Tompkins County, a member of the Tompkins County Food Policy Council, Tompkins Food Future, and an employee of the Food Bank of the Southern Tier. I wanted to thank you all for your time and your ongoing support. I value that. I know that everyone here is aware of the current recent instability caused by policy changes at the federal level. From the food bank perspective, we have lost 15 trailer truckloads of USDA food, primarily nutrient-dense perishable proteins, due to a cancellation of the Commodity Credit Corporation initiative. The cancellations represent the equivalent of 215,000 meals valued at over $434,000 in food. Since that loss, the loads were replaced with similar poundage and price, but not product type. What could have made a meal was replaced with what might make a snack. For now, the food bank is fine. We are continuing to distribute food to our pantry partners, meal sites, and shelters as we normally do. What we all as a community, as a network, will not be able to shoulder are the proposed cuts in the U.S. House of Representatives budget reconciliation package that includes deep reductions to safety net programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, aka food stamps, and the Medicaid program. These cuts would have devastating impacts on the progress we've made around food security. Just as on the national level, these cuts would remove 9.5 billion meals per year from SNAP nationally, which is 1.5 times what the Feeding America National Network can do. Charity won't fix this. SNAP brings in $1.5 million a month into Tompkins County as of March 2025, wherein each dollar of a SNAP benefit spent generates an estimated $1.50 to $1.80 in economic activity. SNAP has an economic impact of $2.2 million to $2.7 million in Tompkins County. The proposed cuts to Medicaid are almost 3 times the size of SNAP cuts. And we know that, similar to food insecurity, when someone can't afford medical care, they're forced to make hard choices. Do they buy food? Do they skip meals? Do they pay their electricity bill, their rent? Do they skip care that's not urgent, only to find themselves in the ER later with much more complicated issues? Probably. The municipal consequences of SNAP cuts, other municipal leaders across the nation have called out our increased demands for city and county services, revenue loss, reduced service capacity.
Feel free to finish up your thoughts.
Thank you. We all know we'll need to work together, as we usually do, to plan for both immediate need and the many unknowns that we face. Please join us. in sounding the alarm about the harmful consequences of the proposed cuts to SNAP and Medicaid and the other essential programs we are here lifting up this evening. We know that the charity system, the state and local government cannot shoulder the consequences of this dangerous proposal. Thank you for your time.
Next up is the Executive Director of the United Way of Tompkins County, Michael Ramos. Welcome to the County Legislature meeting.
Good evening, and thank you. It's an honor to be with you. My name is Michael Ramos, and I serve as President and CEO of United Way of Tompkins County. For more than 100 years, United Way of Tompkins County has animated collective impact toward a community where all people thrive. Coming alongside the more than 100 human service and community-based agencies and organizations we assist through funding on an annual basis, we transform the dynamics of poverty in Tompkins County by addressing human need and creating economic conditions for security for all. We directly support 15 programs to address food insecurity as their mission. A recent site visit to the food pantry in Groton found that they are encountering double the number of people coming for assistance as previously. Staying stably housed and emerging from food insecurity are considerably more challenging given federal cuts. Food production, access, and distribution is the first, most vital, and most visible sign of a county that embraces an authentic social contract. The level of food insecurity in our community, 12% in the U.S. as a whole, is a measure of our community's health, alongside other basic needs which are also being challenged. As a 2-year resident of Tompkins County, I have been heartened by how, when it comes to food, the community itself is consistently organizing resources and organizing people, from community-supported agriculture to cooperative markets to salvaging food to the food bank and pantries to reaching elders on a daily basis to community meals. What we do in this community together is truly remarkable. We come together committed to making the vision of a sufficient, sustainable future a reality by working collaboratively and collectively, breaking down silos and sharing power. We are all impacted by federal cuts and likely cuts. We must face the challenge before us together and proactively. Consistent with what you have heard from other food partners tonight, there is no separation from farmers being hurt and farm workers being harmed. There is no us and them when it comes to providing the resources necessary so that no one goes hungry in Tompkins County. How can we ensure that everyone who needs it can get SNAP? How can we ensure that everyone is reached who cannot leave their home for food? How can we communicate to the state that the rainy day is now and not to wait until the rug is pulled out from local food systems to lend additional funding for the Hunger Prevention and Nutrition Assistance Program and other supports? How can we work with you, this legislature and the one to form in the fall, to invest in food resiliency and equity, especially with additional cuts pending to communal health? Today, we are painting a picture of the local reality, seeking further partnership as new developments that impact community members' lives unfolds. United Way stands as part of the collaborative system for collective solutions that makes Tompkins County the resourceful community that we are. When it comes to food, we can come together as one through existing networks and beyond. For UWTC, we aim high for all our community to flourish. Government, the food distribution network, local businesses and markets, public and private philanthropy, and people serving others food can imagine and enact measures that leaves no one behind. We look forward to conversation with you and our wonderful new County Administrator, Corso Comfy. Thank you for your openness to hear us on this issue today. Thank you.
Robert Lynch.
Good evening, Robert Lynch, Councilperson, Town of Enfield. I'll start my comments with 2 words of advice. Slow down. Please, slow down. I'm referring to a matter that probably anyone outside this oval isn't even aware it's going to be discussed tonight. And that's a member-filed resolution concerning a funding commitment for the Tompkins County Center of Government. At 10 minutes to 10 this morning, that resolution cleared committee. And here we are, a little before 6 o'clock or thereabouts, and we are considering it for acting on it. It hasn't had time to incubate. It hasn't had time to really be scrutinized by the public or anyone else. I serve in town government, and you learn after a while that the public may be a pesky nuisance at times, but the public is pretty darn smart, and they come up with some pretty good ideas. And to the credit of the county, beginning next week, beginning next Wednesday in Groton, there's going to be a series of community engagement meetings to discuss the center of government. We're going to have ours in Enfield one night later, Thursday, the 12th. And there are going to be questions asked. The problem is, if you adopt that resolution tonight, you are essentially putting the cart before the horse. Because I know what people will ask. I knock on doors and I ask questions about the center of government. I know my legislator on the county legislature, Randy Brown, does the same. He says he campaigns door to door. And when you mention the center of government, they say, what? Are you spending $20, $30, $40 million on an office building? Usually lacing an obscenity here or there as adjectives. They say, why are you building the center of government? And secondly, why the heck are you building it downtown? People in the rural areas don't like downtown Ithaca. They don't like the high crime rate. They don't like the fact that they have to drive over speed humps to get here. They have to search for a place to park, and once they have to find a place to park, they don't know how to work those confounded parking meters. They would rather have a place in the country, and it should be an option that's left on the table for the public to evaluate at these public engagement sessions. You know, about 20 years ago, a former county administrator, whom you all probably know, was also confronted with the possibility of a center of government. And his response was the following: I can't make a business case for it. And in all the information that's been presented so far, I can't see that a business case has been made for this. How are we going to save money in the long run versus the 20, 30, 40, 50, some people say $75 million we may spend on this? And one closing thought, and that is, please give me a few more seconds. You know, we in this county have made a decision a long time ago to be a legislature-dominated county government. We do not have an elected county executive, and we don't have an elected county executive because the legislature wants to be piloting the ship. So please, tonight, pilot it responsibly. Thank you.
Next up is Zach Wynn.
Good evening. I sent you an article I wrote about the fire that occurred last Sunday at the Asteri building, which is being investigated as arson. In the story, I showed evidence of a series of similar fires that had been set in the stairwells of the building in the days leading up to Sunday's conflagration. This incident was nothing if not foreseeable. I saw people in the street with their crying children, irate that a fire had been allowed to happen in the building 2 days in a row, wondering to an Asteri security guard why there are no cameras in the stairwells. It was a good question. As I mentioned in the story in my email, the front door of the building remains unsecured with a broken lock, open to anyone who wishes to come and go. There is no one in custody for setting Sunday's fire, and there is no guarantee this type of incident will happen again. I have come here to discuss the conditions at the Asteri many times and appreciated your efforts of visiting the building to see for yourselves what is going on and involving the health department. I would like to again suggest the county instigate an accounting of how much it is costing the taxpayers to pay for the continual responses to the building by law enforcement, fire, and ambulance personnel. Find out how much DSS is giving to Vicino every month to house people at the Asteri. Take a look at the true cost the building represents to the city and county, beyond the tax breaks and millions in grants that finance the building's construction. I don't believe Vicino will make a real effort at getting circumstances at the building under control until they are properly motivated to do so. Please consider modifying or rescinding the tax abatement offered to Vicino. Consider taking over ownership of the building. Tell DSS to stop cutting checks to Vicino until conditions improve. Even before this fire, I can tell you firsthand how disgusting the Asteri is. The stairwells that now smell of smoke previously smelled like urine. You have seen the pictures I have sent. If the door of this building was broken, with people pooping in the lobby and peeing in the elevator, I doubt you would tolerate it and would be dealt with immediately. The residents of the Asteri deserve a similar urgency. If it is not to come from Vicino, it must come from you. Please utilize your authority as lawmakers to get the situation under control and provide a safe place to live to the 180 households in the Asteri. Thank you.
Next up, Kelly Sauvé.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Kelly Sauvé. I'm here tonight in my role as the Executive Director at Loaves and Fishes, as well as a resident of Tompkins County who cares deeply about the 14,000 people who experience food insecurity. At Loaves, we serve 5 meals per week to anyone who walks through our doors. All are welcome. There is never a question asked. We see men, women, and children of all ages coming to our dining hall for food. Most of the ingredients are sourced from in-kind donations given to us by individuals, businesses, and local organizations like the Food Bank of Southern Tier, Wegmans, Wide Awake Bakery, Ithaca Farmers Market, Friendship Donation Network, and more. Our guests choose their food from an array of nutritious options while learning about resources for housing, transportation, and healthcare, gaining community, and building much-needed connections. A high concentration of our meals is distributed at the end of the month, when families are running out of their monthly SNAP EBT allocations. The big beautiful bill, which has passed the House and now sits in front of the Senate, threatens to lower already woefully inadequate SNAP benefits to the tune of over $267 million over 10 years. The impact will be clear in our community. Less buying power for those with EBT means less food. Last year, we served more than 65,000 meals, a nearly 40% increase from the year before. If this increase in need continues as benefits decrease, Loaves' need for food will also increase. This problem is exacerbated by the funding freezes and cuts to food banks and farm-to-food programs. Tompkins County, its myriad human service organizations, and the government must come together to ensure resiliency in our food system. We must address food access by supporting the local agriculture right here in our county and programs that divert food from the waste system and put it back in the mouth of our local residents. The future is very uncertain, and now is the time to consider how we can proactively address these issues with our local food systems leaders. The time is now for all of us to fulfill our most important role to protect the most vulnerable in our community and ensure they have sustenance for their body, mind, and soul.
Anna Ortiz.
Good evening. My name is Anna Ortiz. You know, I don't like to be in front of the microphone because I'm a lady in action. You know, if you see my face, you know, I'm up there in my van, La Negra is outside. And thank you to you guys. You provide us with the van. We call it La Negra. So it's serving so many people in the community, you have no idea. Today, I'm here because they call me the food lady. And you know, when you ask in the community, you know why. But right now, I have different different organization, different backgrounds. But right here, today is very important because when they told me it's a food related, I had to come over here. Because it's like these people behind me, you know, my partners in crime, because they put in their heart and soul every day, even on the weekends. And I have proof in my phone. Because when people, they need some stuff or make some stuff happen in Ithaca, they on it. Like Michael Ramos is a new team, but it's like he feel like he just live here forever. And then right now I'm just saying, like, it's very important. I need you guys' help. And I know you guys care for this community. I know because individual, I see you outside. I need you to see doing stuff. And then if we survive the COVID, we can survive this human crisis, food security target. And then it's like, we don't have to wait until Washington or somebody from outside and this county to take care of our people. You guys need to, we just need to take care of as a local. Who cares about Washington, whatever's in PA or something? We have to take care of our own people. Because no más lágrimas, they put in a heart and soul, and we make sure nobody go to bed without food. My phone is 24 hours. I know it's recorded, but I hope people did not even hear that. But if somebody is hungry in this community, I get up And I make sure nobody, even I bring food from my home to make sure nobody go hungry in this town. And then if I can do this, and these people behind me can do that, you guys can do that too. I need your help. I know you got some money somewhere in this budget situation. I need you to support us. If you don't know what we're doing, come and hang out with us. We need volunteers. I need help. I've got my broken hip. Well, I cracked it, and I don't know how, but I need some help. And I know you guys care about this community. It's no question. But I need you guys to showing people from outside in this county, we care for this community. And we can be better than other places like they happen around in this neighborhood. And plus, you know, thanks to food bank and other stuff, you know, we support it, but I need some money on the side so I can take care of Newfield, I can take care of Thomasburg, I can take care of Groton, because everybody is in crisis right now. And thank you for your time. And I know, yeah, I get excited and apologize, I'm loud, but I really appreciate your time. And if anything, if you have any questions, you can stop by and ride along with me in my Negra, and you see, like, you can make a difference in this town. Thank you.
I want to thank all the members of the public who came to speak tonight. And next up is elected official, municipal official, privilege of the floor. So from the City of Ithaca Common Council, we have Pierre St. Perez and Patrick Keel.
Oh, I guess it's just me coming up here. Okay. As always, good to see you all. I have already told you about most of the issues that are going to be up in front of council at tomorrow's meeting. Some highlights: our council is planning to adopt its Vision Zero policy, which is looking at planning for us having 0 pedestrian deaths in as we move forward into the future. Additionally, we are moving forward with approving our HUD entitlement plan, and with the plan which I noted to you last time to bring our sexual harassment policies into alignment with state and federal policies. Additionally, the plan to place a moratorium on the creation of new historic districts is a voting item at tomorrow's council meeting. And we are going to be bringing foreclosed properties within the city at the county's auction. So thank you for letting us do that.
Questions or comments for Pierre? Randy.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Every meeting, appreciate it. We've heard for well over a year problems at Asteri, and many legislatures have been there, and we visited it and we've inspected it. When I was there 5-6 months ago, the door didn't work, and now here we are 6 months later and the door still doesn't work. But my bigger issue is this is a taxing problem on the city. If memory serves, 700 calls to Asteri in a year's time, and plus fire and police. So my question is, does the city feel that they should be doing anything about this? Do you think the county should be doing about this? Do you think we should ignore it? I mean, what do you think we should be doing? Because this isn't good for anybody.
I mean, I don't feel as though I can articulate city policy on that issue right now. I can say on a personal level, I think that the city and the county should be working together to address it.
Okay, thanks.
Mike Sigler.
I had a similar question. I'm not sure the IDA can do anything, but it would seem to me that the city, I mean, it's in the city. The county doesn't have land use at all. I would think that if it was a nuisance property, the city could fine. And I mean, I'm more than happy to go have another meeting with the developer. That was kind of a funny meeting, but I'm actually surprised they haven't done anything. It doesn't seem like they've done anything. Like, one would think, hire some security. The cameras in the hall seems to be pretty low-hanging fruit. But what I'm going to intend to do is, I liked Zach's idea on DSS, and hopefully maybe we can do something tomorrow at Housing to explore what the county can do, because I'm not sure how many avenues the county has to address this problem, but it would seem to me the city has more leverage than we do. But we'll take a look at it. And that's not hammering you. I'm just saying it seems like the city would have more mechanisms than the county does.
Seldom is the day that I hear you guys envying our land use authority.
There you go.
It is not the solution to many problems that one would often wish it is, I will note.
Greg.
Yeah, I just want to address to my colleagues, and I think that there's some conversation that's taking place and in the works, and obviously Sunday's fire, tragic event, no property wants to go through that, no resident wants to have to be displaced, even temporarily. I do want to commend our county administrator and some other folks from the county who were responsive that evening to just kind of see what, if any, the county could play a role in supporting. It turned out that, maybe the role is in further discussions later on and not an immediate need at that time. But this is a complex issue and not one that we can necessarily, I think, address in this body at this time. But I know personally, I think our county administration and other county departments that are involved are more than willing to be part of the conversations and hopefully part of the solutions. But we do need to be, I don't want to say patient, because that sounds like the government response, but these type of things will take a little bit of time, and it is a complex situation with the structure, the tenant mix, and all the different parties involved, the LDC, the DIA, the developer, the folks that have the eShy units, other folks that have supportive units in that facility. So it's a big group, and I think convening that group in some sort of meaningful dialogue will be taking place in the near future. So it's not being unaddressed, but it's maybe not being visibly addressed to the point in which some of my colleagues are asking for at the moment, if that's a fair summation.
Mike Sigler.
I mean, not to keep the city person here, but what are you saying is being done? Like you referenced our county administrator is working on this. What's he working on?
Corsa, do you want to address that now or in your report, or not at all?
I think there is conversation happening right now between us, the city, and also we have a meeting put together on Friday, and we're hoping that after Friday's meeting we will have a path moving forward in terms of next steps of action, which we will involve ACR and the state agencies that actually funded the project and also the property manager. So it's a bit murky at this point, but after Friday we'll have clarity in terms of which actions we need to take.
Any other questions or comments for Pierre?
I will note, I'm happy to stand here as long as you guys want me to.
Thank you for coming as usual and being willing to stand there, and we know where to find you. Thanks. Next up is legislator privilege of the floor. Greg.
Yeah, Dried and Dairy Days, June 14th, 2025. The parade kicks off at 9:30 and ends in Montgomery Park in the Village. The theme this year is Small Town, Big Hearts, Fresh Milk. So come out and enjoy. It's always a good time. You'll see Mike's bright red truck in the parade and several other folks. And it's just a good time to come and get together and have fellowship and part of our community. There's usually vendors and food and crafts and all sorts of things that you may not see in other parts of the county. So I would encourage everybody to come out on the 14th to Dried and Dairy Days.
Other legislator privilege of the floor. Mike Lane.
Dan,
sad thing that's going to happen, and that is we're going to lose our Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett, to retirement. That's a great thing for her, but for us it's a little bit sad, and this is her last meeting tonight. But the work goes on, even without Lori. Things have to be signed, things have to be worked on, and it's important that we have someone to step in to take over for her until we can appoint a new permanent Director of Finance. And that process is already underway. We are going to have interviews with the Legislature on the 13th of 3 candidates that we want to talk to. In the meanwhile, much as we did before, it is important to have an interim finance director. And we were fortunate to have the deputy finance director, one of the deputies, Andrew Brayman, who took up that mantle for us before. And we think it's probably appropriate if he did it for us again. And so tonight I would like to bring on a motion to appoint Andrew Brayman as the interim finance director effective June 6, 2025. And of course, that will run until we have a new person in place.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Travis seconds. Is there any discussion? And if there's any discussion about the merits of the employee, we need to go into executive session. No? Okay, let's have a vote then. All in favor of Drew Brayman being the interim finance director? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Drew, congratulations. You're welcome to come up and speak.
Lori told me to come, but she didn't tell me to prepare a speech. So I appreciate your vote of confidence in me to take the reins. Mike, I totally agree with you. It is a huge loss for us to see Lori retire. I'm definitely wishing her well, but you know, work does go on and we'll do that. And I'll do my best to fulfill those duties. Reach out to me with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Drew. All right, we are back to legislator privilege of the floor. Shauna.
Thank you, Dan. I just want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. It is June, and typically this is the month that we celebrate Pride. And this year feels a little bit different for many of us. And I went into Chase Bank today to do some banking, and I thought it was still pretty cool that they have Pride flags all over the place. They have pens and stickers, and you know, for me, living locally, it's been nice to see vendors and organizations celebrate a month that is really so important to myself and my family. I remember a time many, many years ago when my wife and I could not get married, whenever we started thinking about having a family. And it's good to know that times have changed. I also, you know, I think sometimes whenever you're gay in this community, you kind of take it for granted and you don't realize some of the rights, some of the protections we have here, how I've always felt safe walking down the commons or walking in my neighborhood. And I don't always feel that whenever I travel. The one thing that I want to say thank you to is the allies out there, that I have neighbors that are putting up their Pride flags. I have friends on Facebook that are posting Happy Pride Month, and just those small gestures, it really means a lot to people like me and my family. So I just want to let people know that, you know, I think in times right now, it's, you know, we're at a crossroads, and I think many organizations, many governments are kind of backtracking a little bit, and they're not posting up that Pride flag this month. They're taking the year off to see where things go. And I'm proud of our county that we're sticking with our true commitment to protect the citizens that that identify as the community. And you know, I hope we continue to be true to ourselves and to provide those protections. So thank you all.
Thank you. And Ann.
Yeah, I just want to build up for what Shauna was saying. If you haven't read Project 2025, take a look at it. This is the year 2025, and as far as LGBTQ plus rights, say for instance you talked about marriage. A lot of people don't realize. I looked it up years ago. Before I was able to be married to my wife, and there was, I think, 200 or something rights that you have, that you can't just go to a lawyer and you can put a few of them in place, but there's just a lot of protections and rights, financial rights, government benefits, health and medical rights, family and parental rights, estate planning rights, immigration rights, employment benefits, and when they talk about government benefits, there's Social Security, all kinds of different things. And one of the things that is proposed in Project 2025 is to strip us of those rights. So to take them away from people that have them. So just like people to think about that. That's me and Shauna, and maybe some other folks. What'd you say? I thought you said something. I do appreciate people speaking up. What has been hard is, or another thing that's been hard too, in addition to entities, whether it's government entities around the nation, businesses, getting rid of their DEI and actually making statements pretty much anti-DEI, against justice and diversity and inclusion. And so, again, you can, if you're interested, look on companies' websites. There's also groups that are tracking this and seeing the shift. I mean, it's amazing if you just look at here in Ithaca at the major corporations. It's hard to find a major corporation that's doing business here, a national corporation that's doing business here, that hasn't rescinded and taken back their inclusion and diversity policies. So that's hard to see. The second thing I wanted to say was to thank you to Lori, that tonight is your last meeting, and I heard you didn't really want to have anything. All I'm just wanted to say was to thank you from me. Since you've been here, you've been very helpful in helping us learn a lot more about how we should budget, what we are doing, what improvements we can make, and you're always here to help us understand it too, because it's very complicated and it's not coming from a financial background. It's been really helpful. So thank you, and I wish you well on your retirement. So thank you very much.
Any other legislator privilege of the floor? Rich.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. And I did want to say I attended the Dryden Parade Dairy Days last year, and it really was fun. It was very impressive. I particularly remember the Marathon High School Marching Band, and I wish they were part of our county because they were pretty good. But I wanted to talk for a minute because you can see I'm sporting my tie-dye, and I received this shirt as a gift at my last Tompkins County Public Library meeting. And I said thank you, and I also indicated I would talk about it at our meeting tonight. I'd wear it and talk about it. So there it is. Everybody knows the library is a place of books and music and videos, but they also have a maker space, and I wanted to just mention some of the things that go on there. They make tie-dye shirts, as it turns out, but they also have sewing machines, they have embroidery machines, they have 3D printing, they have laser cutting, they have sign making, and in addition to that, they've got lots of classes so that you can go in and learn lots of arts and crafts at our public library, and it's really a vibrant, fun place to go. For those who didn't know about it, I hope you go pay him a visit. It's really worth going to see. And thank you for the tie-dye shirt.
And it's less than $75, so it doesn't fall under the ethics policy.
Yeah, it is not a luxury aircraft. They offered me a luxury aircraft or the tie-dye shirt. I said, no, the shirt's fine.
Legislator privilege of the floor. Veronica.
I have three things to say. I'll try to be quick. One, as another gay person, I want to celebrate Pride Month. Specifically, we're going to have a formal proclamation about Pride Month and about Juneteenth, which is also coming up this month. Next meeting, but there are some events between now and then I want to mention. On the weekend where everything happens, Saturday, June 14th and Sunday, June 15th. So in addition to Dried and Dairy Days, there's also a Pride celebration hosted by Ithaca Pride Alliance here in downtown Ithaca. The theme is Queer Joy, Queer Power. There are events on the Saturday evening, June 14th, and then daytime events, I think from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on June 15th. And you can go to ithacapridealliance.org for details. For Juneteenth, I guess Juneteenth itself, the date is after our next legislature meeting, but before that, also on Saturday the 14th, there will be the usual annual celebration at Southside Community Center in Southside Ithaca from noon to 6 p.m. And while I'm announcing times and places, since Anna invited us all to come hang out with the food people, one place you can do that is Loaves and Fishes. Come have a meal with me. Open invitation, even though this is recorded. But also on most Thursdays, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Henry St. John building, there is the typical No Mas Lágrimas food distribution, and it is probably the most convenient way to find people from that organization is just to show up. Second thing, I want to briefly defend downtown in the wake of some comments about people not liking it. I will say that in my experience, there are plenty, people have a variety of opinions, and there are plenty of rural people who do like to come downtown, who come downtown all the time for various reasons. I teach at Newfield High School, and a lot of the kids enjoy spending their time in downtown Ithaca. And they also are very attached to the Newfield community and scheme with whether they have time to go to the covered bridge market and back during lunch period. But there's a lot of interest in coming here. And these are kids who don't have cars themselves. There's also plenty of people choose to live downtown so that they can walk, so that they don't have to drive over the speed bumps, so that they can bike on the roads that are slightly less dangerous because of the speed bumps. And there are also, it's fewer, but there are people in the outside towns who also don't have cars. So everything about the driving is simply not relevant to them, and yet they still get around with difficulty that we should make better. And also just downtown is my home, and I love it. And I like to stroll through the commons in the dark after the legislature meetings, and it's fine. But there was a bit of to each their own. Finally, thanks to all the food system people for coming and talking in such a clear, coherent, compelling way. A few things I heard that I just want to also get on the record is I heard that food access is a core public good. I think that's good to keep in mind. I heard that Tompkins Food Future has been doing great work, which also I observe when I go to their events, and that the legislature should continue to support it, which I will advocate doing. I heard that the community and all these organizations and just people are already doing, they're already making things work, making food access and the food system work, which does not mean that the government can sit back, obviously, but that I think we should collaborate humbly with the community, not as inviting them to our table, but showing up to theirs and seeing what resources we can plug in and offer. Michael Ramos used the phrase breaking down silos and sharing power, which I really liked. And finally, since we don't have a county department that deals with food, food doesn't live in any of our legislature committees, but I wonder if it should. just as a topic, because we, or I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've heard from Tompkins Food Future at times, but it's like we have to proactively remember each time, I think. I just checked the committee responsibility list and it's not there, which doesn't mean we can't invite them. But that's just a thought to sort of, maybe that would help raise it in the priority list, even though it doesn't come with like departmental reporting.
Mike Lane.
I guess maybe it's time to say something about Ukraine again. The Ukraine war now is in its third year. A democracy was attacked by a autocracy, an oligarchy. There have been, I don't know whether you can believe the figures, but there have been hundreds of thousands of casualties in this war. The autocracy uses terrorism. It sends its missiles and its drones to attack apartment buildings and other kinds of human activities, hospitals. Commercial buildings, retail buildings. The democracy uses its defense to attack the military structure of the autocracy, Russia. Over the weekend, or last week, I should say, and over the weekend, Russia unleashed its largest barrage of missiles and drones against Ukraine. But lo and behold, Ukraine had a plan that's been going on for a year, and that was to attack the Russian military bases with drones that had driven into Russia in hiding, and actually destroyed some of the bombers that they used to go ahead and send cruise missiles into Ukraine. We have a leader now in Washington who promised on day one he'd end this war. None of us believe that. And all he does is complain about the last president and what a horrible president he was. Well, that president, I put together and held together NATO as an alliance the way it ought to be, and supported Ukraine, and we used our treasures. It cost us a lot of money. Yes, it's not making cryptocurrency. It's not drill baby drill, but it was protecting a democracy, and the war still goes on. I think we should think about the people in Ukraine every day. We don't fly the flag in the front of the room anymore. I wish we did, but we've decided not to do that. We need to remember the people who are dying over there for democracy. And as our democracy is under fire here, from inside, we need to think about that every day. Thank you.
Randy.
Thank you, Dan. I would agree with Veronica on the food system issue. I am actually the liaison with the Food Policy Council for the legislature, and I attend all their meetings. I also attend the Tompkins Food Future meetings as well as other legislatures that do. And the county funded $40,000 last year for a contract to help farmers apply for grants. So in 20,000 that was expended last year, and 20,000 is this year. And so I've got some data from the meeting and wanted to share it. So that, it shows that the county is helping. So they had many breakout sessions and counseling sessions, and a total of 70 different people, entities came to these classes and to understand what grants were available. They did a lot of research on grants to see what were viable. Some were, some weren't. Of those 70, 25 of these farmers were BIPOC farmers. And that stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. That's a really good number, and it's great, so I wanted to share that. And they submitted 21 applications for $940,000, and they're waiting feedback on whether they're going to get any of that. So I just wanted to share that. I also wanted to share a story. I was on a panel along with 40 other Newfield residents when they were selecting the new superintendent of the school. They really did a very transparent system, and all the people came through and the interviewees, and they did select somebody. But one of the people in the room I was in was a member from the LGBTQ plus community, and she made a statement to us. And she said, you know, I was told that Newfield's not the place to come. You know, that it's not really receiving of people. And she said, you know, I was completely wrong. She goes, the people here have been great. I hope, Veronica, you're having the same experience. And it was really encouraging, you know, and she talked quite a bit about it and how she feels her kids are thriving, and it's been a good environment for them. So I just wanted to share that.
Travis.
I'll make it quick. I was listening to the guests talk about the food insecurities. At GIAC for 20 years, we've been serving dinner every night to our students. In the summertime, we do lunch and dinner. Over the last 15 years, we've done breakfast, lunch, and dinner for all of the kids. I was doing a report yesterday for a grant that we receive, and we serve over 25,000 meals out of our kitchen each year. And we've been waiting since January 1st for the USDA to say we're not getting reimbursed anymore. We've been waiting for the school district to say they can't provide lunches anymore because they're not getting reimbursed. And we've been waiting for the food bank to tell us that thanks for ordering, but we don't have the food that you need for your program. We have all these young people in the community who survive on these meals. We are 75% free and reduced lunch. As these programs get cut, as these funds dry up, that means that 75% out of our 164 kids all season long, all year long, don't get food the same way the other 25% do. It's a very scary time for a lot of people. And food is huge. Like, we would have kids begging for leftovers from our lunch the day before when they would come to camp in the morning. And I finally realized what was going on. For some of those kids, during the school year, they would get breakfast and lunch, and they wouldn't get dinner at home. Now it's summertime. There is no breakfast, right? There is no dinner. The only thing they get is lunch at camp. We expect these kids to learn and function and do all the things that other kids do, and they're starving. And so that's when we started our meals program to address that. And luckily, there was funding out there at the state and federal level to help with that. And because we are in Tompkins County, there were philanthropy groups that had money. There were private citizens that had funds that donated to the program. It is a very challenging time. You all have known Anna for a long time. You know the work that she does. It's just getting very difficult. Feeding your kids, feeding your family, feeding your community is huge. And we are in a situation where a lot of folks are really nervous about those funds drying up. So I do hope if we get to that place that this county is able to help its residents, because it's very challenging.
Any other legislative privilege of the floor? Okay, thank you, everybody. I have one chair's appointment. This is Denise Vreeland to the Workforce Development Board. And then for my chair's report, just a few things to mention. First of all, a recent copy of the Tompkins Weekly front page, Legislator Travis Brooks, front and center. Picture in front of GIAC, hosting the Community Foundation celebration. I'd just like to point out when we make the paper. Also on Saturday, June 14th, I heard a lot of activities being mentioned, and there's another one going on that I'm planning on participating in. First of all, June 14th is a holiday called Flag Day, which I've never celebrated before. But as part of that celebration this year, there's going to be a community reading of the Constitution at the public library. It'll be outdoors if it's good weather, indoors if it's bad weather. It's on Saturday, June 14th, 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. And whoever shows up and wants to can read a little portion of the Constitution. I'm going to read the whole thing. It is a nonpartisan event, so they're asking for no signs, please, no signage. This event is sponsored by the Tompkins County Historian, the Tompkins County Historical Commission, the Tompkins County Public Library, and the Greater Ithaca Activities Center. And then I wanted to mention that the Tompkins County Sheriff's Department just put out its 2024 annual report. It's a 54-page document. There's a lot of information in there. It's worth spending some time with if this is something that interests you. A lot of statistics about crimes in Tompkins County and also in other ways that the Sheriff's Department interacts with Tompkins County residents. That is my chair's report. Next, we're moving to reports from other staff, starting with County Administrator Corsa Okumfi.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of my report, I just want to highlight hiring process for the Commissioner of Whole Health and DSS are coming to an end. We should be, we are now going through some few verification and review process. We should be in a position to announce the hiring in the coming weeks, and that will be brought to the chamber, I believe, on at the next sitting for formal endorsement or appointment or confirmation of those hiring processes. We are beginning the process for highway director hiring process. We are now reviewing the job description, and that will follow the same process as well. I believe there have been so many things said so far about the fire, and yes, we are having conversation with the city and also with some community members, and we expect some form of action in the coming weeks or months. I think my first encounter 5 months ago was about Asteria, an issue related to that. As has been said, I don't know the degree at which the county can be involved because we don't have any oversight to that building, or we don't have any authority over that ownership, but we will use our relationship with the city and also other county agencies to see where we can intervene and what actions can be taken to bring some degree of normalcy into that space. The other report will be under the Senate government. I will reserve that to the committee report and any further conversations. So that's my report for now.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the county administrator? Well, I'll just mention, Greg hinted at it, and I was wondering if you would mention it. Corsa drove down to the Asteri fire at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. So, on Sunday night, I mean. So I'm very impressed. Thank you. Okay, next up is County Attorney Maury Josephson.
I do not have a specific report tonight. I'm open to your questions now or at any time, and look forward to further discussion during our executive session.
Questions or comments for the County Attorney? Okay, thank you. Next up, Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett.
Thank you. Tonight I have the April sales tax report as well as a couple updates. So I would like to start with the sales tax report. For the month of April, sales tax overall increased 2.33% over April of last year. The county mirroring that at 2.33% for its share. The municipalities increased 0.86% and the city of Ithaca 3.9%. So through the end of April, we are at 33.24% of what we have budgeted.
Questions or comments for Lori? Okay.
So I do have a couple updates. The IMREM foreclosure process, we have seen some activity there. We are now at 9 residential properties, 4 vacant and commercial properties for a total of 13 going to auction. And we have seen a substantial increase in the number of installment agreements. We are now at 47. This time last year, we had 17. So some action there. I'd also like to let you know that we received a beautiful check from the IRS on May 30th, and it was the energy tax credits that Terry Carroll led in getting for the county. And a big shout out to him for leading that up and getting that done, but we received just over $1.8 million.
Woo!
Before we clap, did it clear?
I assume so. But I didn't want to steal his thunder, but I did want to shout out because he worked really hard on that. And then lastly, I just wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity that I had in coming here. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciate all the support given to me by each and every one of you and to our clerks of the legislature. I have really enjoyed working here. You have a great team and a great county, and I will miss you all. Thank you.
We'll miss you too.
Thank you, Lori. Any further questions for the County Finance Director? Ann?
Would you consider oh, never mind. Thank you.
I already
asked.
Mike?
I just thought we should mention that we did do an exit interview with Lori, and she came tremendously prepared to give us a lot of thoughts about what should be done in the future, what still needs to be done, and some policy changes we might even want to think about. And that was probably the most prepared exit interview I've been privileged to attend.
Thank you. All right, we are up to agenda item number 10, resolutions to be added to or withdrawn from the agenda. Ann, did you have one?
This one?
Yes, please.
Oh, I thought Randy was going to do it.
Your name's on it.
I guess my name's on it. So yes, that's mine. I didn't realize that. So yes, I'd like to add Resolution O to the agenda. It's in your red folders, and the title is Approving of Funding for the Center of Government Project.
Is there a second? Amanda seconds. We're going to need 10 votes to get this onto the agenda. Is there any discussion? Ready to vote then? All in favor? Any opposed? One opposed. The motion carries. Okay, we are up to the consent agenda. First, I'll read the advisory board appointments. From the Health and Human Services Committee to the Community Mental Health Services Board Mental Health Subcommittee, Cindy Friedmutter, community member. And from the Public Safety Committee to the Advisory Board on Indigent Representation, Jerome Mayersack, Attorney at Large. I will read the resolutions. If there's any you want pulled, just to speak up.
I'd like to pull A.
A has been pulled. Resolution B, authorizing award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and New York State Department of Transportation, New York NYS DOT, grant for purchase of aircraft rescue and firefighting, ARFF, safety equipment, handheld tools and personal protective equipment /PPE, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 13298. Resolution C, authorizing award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and New York State Department of Transportation, NYS DOT, grant for purchase of snow removal equipment, SRE/blower/broom, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 13299. Resolution D, award of contract and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and New York State Department of Transportation, NYS DOT, grant. Conduct energy assessment, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 13300. Resolution E, authorizing award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and New York State Department of Transportation, NYSDOT, grant for ARFF/SRE building site work, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 13301. Resolution F, authorization for the Tompkins County Highway Department to enter into a multi-year agreement with Cintas for uniform rental, ID number 13305. Resolution G, authorization to accept the Safe Streets for All, SS4A, Joint Safety Action Plan and Vision Zero Goal, ID number 13303. And from the Health and Human Services Committee, Resolution H, budget adjustment, Department of Social Services, DSS, and County Office for the Aging, COFA, transfer of full-time equivalent, FTE, and associated budget from DSS to COFA, ID number 13274. Resolution I, budget adjustment, Whole Health Department, Public Fellow Program, ID number 13289. And Resolution J, authorization to accept funds and complete budget adjustment, Personal Recovery Oriented Services, PROS, Whole Health Department, ID number 13311. Is there somebody that would move the consent agenda? Lee moves, Travis seconds. Ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We are up to our standing and special committee reports and resolutions, starting with the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Ann Corman, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Our committee has not met since last legislature meeting, but we are meeting this coming Monday, June 9th at 1 p.m. here. We have a pretty short agenda with a couple of things from our Department of Recycling and Materials Management. And one of them is a resolution supporting deconstruction and building materials for reuse. And another resolution is regarding reuse services, and it's award of a contract to Finger Lakes Reuse. That's following an RFP that we've had going. And then we're going to be talking about an interesting topic, leachate generation report. And then, since it's a short agenda, maybe we could have a party celebrating Terry's accomplishment in getting us some money. So I think there was extra money in there for a party in the grant. So I'll take a look at the line by line to see if there was.
34,000.
Pardon me?
34,000.
34,000 for that?
In interest.
It's a hell of a party.
Okay, I might have to leave early to go to the party store to get some stuff. And anything else I'm forgetting, Veronica?
No, I think that's all. Just a convenient day to have a party right after Lori leaves.
The day after?
Questions or comments for Ann Corman? Okay, thank you. Next up, Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. The Public Safety Committee met last Tuesday, May 27th. We had a extensive conversation about emergency medical services in the county and whether we want to think about building on our rapid medical response program that we've had operating here for, I'm thinking, 2 years?
1 year.
1 year. 1 year. That's right. We're in our second year of funding. It was a good meeting in that we had pretty much a majority of the players at the meeting, which is the first time that's really happened. And there was I would say, a robust discussion. There is a member-filed resolution that we'll consider later on in the meeting, and I just wanted to indicate why we decided to proceed with the member-filed. If we waited, we're trying to get some consulting help to help us make some good decisions in this area in our budget cycle. And if we waited until the June meeting of the Public Safety Committee, we couldn't vote on it here at the legislature until our second meeting in July. And it would be too late really to get anything substantial done in terms of consulting work and a report before we had to make budget decisions. And particularly, the question before us is whether we want to consider doing a pretty significant expansion of our operations in emergency medical services. And for the benefit of the public, the county has generally not been involved in ambulance service. The rapid medical response has been a new venture for us, and I think a pretty successful one. But we're looking at some significant issues regarding the overall capability of our response system in the county, and so we have to think hard about that. At any rate, I can speak further about that when the resolution comes up, but you just have the context of why we're doing the member file tonight. Other than that, I just mentioned our jail numbers. We're at 75 with 12 board outs, which puts us above our capacity at the jail. Our jail has a capacity of 81, and principally because of state-ready inmates that are not going to the state because of the state issues, we are holding more people here locally, and we are over our numbers. So this is something that certainly is troubling, and I don't think it's going to resolve itself very soon, but that's the reason we're carrying a lot of board outs right now. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions or comments for Rich? Randy?
Hey, Rich, is there a vehicle where we can charge the state for housing?
There are conversations going on because this is happening to all the jails across the state, that they're really housing more people than they should as the state tries to figure out how to reboot and fix their prison system. You know, and I think it's going to take a long time, and we should be getting reimbursed something on this.
It's another unfunded mandate.
Yeah, and it's kind of an easy one for the state. They just don't pick them up. So, you know, frankly, I think we do a pretty good job in terms of working with the people who are inmates in our jail. And so in the longer term, if these people are going to return to our community, maybe it's not the end of the world that we're keeping them here longer, but we're paying for it. So hopefully that can get resolved.
Thank you.
Okay, and Rich, you also had Resolution A that was pulled from the agenda?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
This is authorization to accept New York State Canal Corporation Marine Patrol Grant 2025-2026, Doc ID 13322, and I would move it.
Greg seconds. Randy? Yeah, I pulled this. I know what it is. This has happened for a couple of years, I think. But in reading through the contract, it seemed like a lot of work for $20,000. So I just wanted to share that.
Any other discussion? Ann?
Can you please summarize? I read through most of it, but it's a long contract. What exactly, if we could summarize for me and for the public, what's the $20,000 for?
This is helping to fund the Marine Patrol program that the sheriff uses to work on the lake. Greg could certainly speak to it too, because he is knowledgeable about it as well. But this is a yearly grant that the sheriff receives to help do that work. And we do want the sheriff to have the capability to go out, not just on patrols, but in emergencies.
So it's not for equipment, it didn't look like it was.
Hours or hours?
To reimburse for hours.
Yeah, and it is New York State, so there has to be a very complicated, extensive contract that is hard to understand.
Really.
Yeah.
Greg?
Yeah, this is a very good thing because a lot of overtime and additional resources that are required to do the Marine Patrol. This money helps to backfill and cover those hours because the state doesn't have the resources fully to cover those patrols in sort of New York State governed bodies of water. And especially with the New York State Safe Boating Act that went into effect January 1st, 2025, which requires all individuals operating a motorized vessel on water to have a boater safety certificate. This year, I think even more is important because if you see our sheriff out on the water, if you've ever experienced interaction with them, They are there to do courtesy checks, to make sure that you're prepared in the case of an emergency. Obviously, if you're doing something reckless or out of line, they will address it from a law enforcement standpoint. But really just to have the positive presence on the lake keeps motorized vessels, kayakers, paddleboarders, windsurfers, kite surfers, all those folks safe. And it's something that we don't actually have enough of on our lake, and we need more of. So any help that we can get, we should be supportive of, especially with the changes to boater safety laws that are in effect because of a tragic accident that took place in 2019. It's also referred to as Brianna's Law. So that's where this came from, but I would fully support this, and any resource that we get from the state to, again, either keep our waterways clean and safe should be strongly considered.
Any other discussion? Resolution A. Ann?
Just real quick, so for the voter safety certificate, so is that required for people even renting boats?
No, so
motorized vehicles?
boat rental is excluded because of the knowledge base and the short-term nature of the operation, and the renter of the vessel is essentially on the hook for the liability to make sure that they provide the right training and information. And a lot of the rental platforms that exist on our lake provide similar types of training in advance of the rental date available to boaters. And many places that rent boats also include a discount or incentive if they already come with their New York State boating safety certificate.
Thank you.
Resolution A. Any further discussion? Ready to vote then? All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving on. Tompkins Intergovernmental Relations Committee, Shauna Black, Chair.
Thank you. We have not met since the last meeting, and I believe our next meeting is in August, which feels like it's so far away.
2 months. Any questions or comments for the Tiger Committee? Okay, thank you. Next up, Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We met last Wednesday, had some good discussions about procedures for the Strength and Diversity Award, preparing for the climate survey, equity indicator reporting from departments, other various updates. I think some highlights are that our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Charlene Holmes, presented trends in equity indicators chosen by our departments. And this was part of the work plan planning for this year, where Charlene supported, per the institutionalizing equity report that we all saw presented, I don't know, some months ago. She supported the departments in naming and formalizing some of the embedding of equity in their work. And it sounds like overall it's going really well, and a few of the departments we're going to be scheduling short presentations, or she's going to help us schedule short presentations for them to talk about what they're doing specifically in the sphere at future WDIC meetings. None are scheduled yet, but I will tell you when they are. And what was the other thing? We discussed, maybe this is like slightly stealing Amanda's thunder, but it was relevant to us that we're excited that the draft diversity, equity, and inclusion policy is coming back to the Government Operations Committee this week. I'll let Amanda tell you when it is. And that is something that this committee has worked on, and in particular, Team Jedi did a lot of work with. Also, shout out to Jedi alumni Joan Jerkowitz for joining us briefly for the meeting, but only the one time. And our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, June 25th at 3 p.m.
Questions or comments for the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee? Shauna.
Yeah, I think one thing that came up that I also was really excited about is that we're talking about policy that would allow adoptive parents to have parental time off. So I hope that's up and coming. was excited to hear about that. My assumption is there are a lot of people that look to build their family through adoption, and that bonding time is really essential. So I hope we can talk about that as a county and continue to be an employer of choice.
All right, thank you. Next up, Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Our next meeting is going to be on June 12th here at 9:00 a.m. And I have one resolution, which is a kind of an important one, and I'd like to move that unless there's any questions.
Can you read it, please?
Read the title. I'm sorry? This is adoption of local law number B of 2025, a local law overriding tax levy limit for 2026, ID 13282. This is Resolution K, and I so move and would like to speak to it.
Thank you. Deborah seconds. Before we start discussion, I just want to say that two requirements of this law is one is that it's, this vote, is that it's a roll call, and that it needs 9 votes to pass. It's a 60% threshold, which translates to 9 votes. Discussion. Randy. Oh, sorry, Mike. You want to start us off?
Yeah, I just want to say it's kind of easy to say, well, we do this every year, and it's just kind of a technical kind of thing. But it means a lot because it means we have put, once we pass one of these local laws, we have put a tool into our backpack for the budget process that comes forward in the fall. Over the years, I think we've only ever used it one time because none of us wants to exceed the tax cap if we don't have to. But certainly this year, we have to be very, very thoughtful about what may be coming down the line. And we're not the only municipality, or in this case, our state, that has no idea what's going to be coming down the line. I know that from reading articles, that the state legislature is poised to immediately come back into session if the big, beautiful, that term it bothers me, big, beautiful bill gets through the Senate and the House of Representatives and causes the horrible cuts that are proposed for Medicaid particularly. So we've got to have this possibility here that we might have to exceed the tax cap. We don't know whether we will or not. And if we don't need to do that, we will repeal it as we have done almost every year at budget time. So I would like to urge everyone to please vote for this. You aren't voting to override the tax cap. You're voting to allow us to do that upon a vote.
Randy.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. So basically, if we vote for this, when we get to the actual budget vote, that's when it would actually take place. This is just putting it in place just in case, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I will vote for it.
Thank you. Shauna.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for explaining that. Every year we kind of go back and forth, and it's good to get some clarity. I also want to just point out the fact that we are elected to, this is one of our great jobs. It's policy and it's working on the budget and spending the money that we get in from people that pay taxes. And I think all of us take that job really seriously. I might disagree with many of you, well, most of you, but this is the one thing that we agree on, is that we work really hard to balance our budget, and we're really conservative about the funds that we spend. I will say, though, whenever we look at the budget this year and whenever we think about things that are coming from the federal government, we also know that there's a commitment to our constituents and the people that live here to provide great services. And with that, we know that we might have to come to the table and supplement some of those great services that so many people in our community use. And so we've given Corsa instructions on how to bring forth a budget. And my fear right now is that if this does not pass, Corsa will need to know that, And he will more than likely have to go back to our department heads and let them know that there will need to be some adjustments to our budget. And there will need to be some cuts because the maintenance of effort would more than likely be more than our tax cap at this point. So I think we all understand the magnitude and that people are working really hard to pay their bills. I get probably the biggest complaint that I receive is how much taxes are in Tompkins County. And so we hear you, we understand that, and we're trying to balance the need for our services versus making sure that we stay a place where people can afford. So I hope my colleagues are able to vote for this so that Course is able to go back to department heads and let them know that we will be supporting their agencies and our staff departments. Thank you.
Mike Sigler.
I'm going to vote against this like I do every year. I appreciate that it's a tool, and it's a valuable tool in our backpack, but it's not a tool that we have to pick up on June 3rd. We can pick this up at pretty much any time before we vote on the budget. So I've never really understood why we feel the need to pick up this tool quite so early. There was a reason the tax cap was put in place. Some can say it was arbitrary by former Governor Cuomo. Obviously, there should have been something that he did that actually ameliorated the roll down of taxes from the state through mandates. But clearly back then, too, there was a problem with property taxes. Not one I feel he adequately addressed, but at least it was a recognition that New York State had become unaffordable, and frankly, for a lot of people still is. So I don't want to send the message to people that we're not going to stay within the cap. I think that it's a nice limiting factor for us, and it definitely keeps us focused. And if we do need to pick up the tool later on, then that will be the discussion then.
Deborah.
I think the reason we pick the tool up now is to help our county administrator and our departments plan for next year. You know, I don't think we can say this often enough. What I took away from our budget retreat was that we couldn't even make maintenance of effort without exceeding the tax cap. That's never happened before. And tonight, we listened to people come in and tell us that food security is threatened by the federal government's potential passing of the big, beautiful bill. It's not just food security, it's housing security and health coverage. I mean, I've been preparing a presentation about the potential impacts of the big, beautiful bill and the administration's policies. It's millions and millions of dollars just in Tompkins County. So not only are we facing the possibility that we can't maintain our current effort without exceeding the tax cap, but we're also facing the possibility that millions of dollars that our not-for-profits depend on, and that we depend on, and that the city and the towns depend on, may be cut. And you know everybody's going to be coming to us saying, you need to make this up somehow. You need to provide these services. So I understand we go through this. This is the 8th time I've been through this thing. You know, and I know where everybody usually stands on this, but this is not a usual year. So I implore you to please consider changing your mind on this if you're thinking of voting against it. Thank you.
Rich.
Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about the ambulance service later on in our meeting today. And it would be a significant new commitment by the county of funding that we haven't even considered in any way because we haven't done this activity in the past. It would blow us through the tax cap in a moment. And one of the things we'll have to consider is, do we want to be in this new space? One of the legislative efforts New York State talked about this year was for counties that are responding to the crisis and emergency medical services, could new spending be excluded from the tax cap? And I don't believe anything happened with that. So it's no different than any other spending, even if it should be. But yet another reason I think this year would be different. Maybe we're not going to spend anything further on emergency medical services, but I think it's yet one more argument why we want that flexibility this year. I will support the resolution.
Greg.
Yeah, I think my colleague Deborah Dawson made some very good points about housing security, food security, healthcare, social safety nets, all of those type of things. And I would support them, and I would support passing the buck to the taxpayer if necessary. I think that this is too premature, and I would rather see this in October once we know what those are. The big nasty bill hasn't even passed yet. There's a possibility that it may, there's a possibility that it may not, and we don't know what's in that yet. I think that this is giving up bargaining leverage to the state to say, hey, we're willing to pass on the burden to our property taxpayers and not push back to the state and say, state, you need to figure out how to pay for these services that the federal government is pushing back on you. And I also think from a budgeting standpoint, to send the message that we're willing to go over something isn't going to achieve the result that we hope for in a zero-based budget model approach where you're coming with what is absolutely necessary. And if we come and get to that point after departments have submitted their budgets, then we should have this discussion. But I think giving this tool up prematurely is an unnecessary exercise, and I feel the same way every year. We can pass this later and still achieve the same result. We don't have to do this today, and I think we weaken our position to get the best possible budget, the best possible services at the lowest possible cost to the taxpayer should be our goal in every budget season. And I think changing this now in June prematurely takes away any strength that we have to negotiate with the county administrator, our agencies, and our state and federal partners. So I don't see myself supporting this evening.
Travis.
I guess my dilemma is that I agree with everybody that's spoken. And as somebody who is going to be part of a leadership team in about a month, who's going to prepare a budget to take to Common Council and explain why we can't be cut and why we need more money and why we have these requests over what the city manager had put in their budget, I understand the position that the county administration and department heads are going to be in. It's great to have all the tools that you need. With the exception of the first year that I sat in this room, we've talked about all the things that are going to happen and why we needed to tighten up OTRs and why department heads needed to tighten up their budgets. And every year, it seems as if there's this ridiculous amount of money that we're sitting on, and we go through the OTRs, and there's all these OTRs that come. And then there's our member-filed OTRs that come after we talked for 6 months about how tight the budget was going to be. So my fear is, if we do this now, we say to folks, we can go over the tax cap, you don't have to be as tight as you need to be on your budget. And so that's kind of where I'm stuck. And then my colleagues in the room, we talk about how tight we have to be and how smart we have to be in our member-filed resolution. And what do? We slam a bunch in. And I don't know when that cycle stops. And I do understand all the needs that our community has. I do understand how we want to help agencies. But we sat and we looked at some departments and some agencies over time, and we were like shocked. We talked about how lean budgets needed to be, and we're like, damn, you put in 14 over target requests. This is crazy. So I don't know what message it sends if we say now we're willing to go over the tax cap. I'm really on the fence with that. And like I said, I agree with all of you, so I'm really stuck.
Ann.
So part of the issue that I see that is coming to a head is that in several previous years, numerous previous years since I've been on the legislature, so this will be I think my 8th budget, is that many of those times we have taken money for ongoing expenses instead of raising the tax cap, is we've taken money from contingent fund. So we had an artificial number, and we were told over and over again that it was going to come and bite us, that we weren't raising revenue to cover that. And so here we are. And so that if we had raised slowly and consistently, at least some of the time, more than we had raised the tax levy than we have done, then we would not be here. So now we have to, I see part of that, I mean, there's many reasons, but part of it is an adjustment. And if you took your own budget at home and you weren't increasing your pay, your expenses were going up, or you're just trying to meet your, the costs for, your family, and we know costs are going up. We have union negotiations, and we're trying, so we're giving people fair pay, also trying to get sign-on people from that live in different areas and trying to come here. It costs a lot to live here, but just to be fair, to give people increases, we've negotiated contracts with our employees, and that costs more money. And so now to be saying, well, we're not going to figure out how to fund that, I think is a mistake. And so and again, that's part of it. We know there's many factors, and so we were told this is coming, and it's here. So I think we need to at least have this in our tool belt. And I am going to support this, obviously, because I think it's something that is a real possibility for this year, that we might have to go over the tax levy cap.
I was not going to take a turn, but I feel compelled to now because I can't let those last statements be out there in public. We have $64 million in the bank. We are not there. We are not in any kind of bad situation based on that, not in any kind of past decisions about taxation. So I know this is a big disagreement among legislators, but any government would be happy to have $64 million in the bank, and they would not be declaring it a financial emergency. Veronica.
I have a question for Corsa, so sorry for putting you on the spot, but one of the things that has come up is people are talking about the reason we do this now instead of later is because of the difference it'll make to do it now versus later in how you were going to lead the budgeting process. So I guess, can you speak to what direction you would be taking from us passing or not passing this resolution tonight? Like, will it affect how you work with the departments over the summer?
Thank you. I think for us in administration, it will not change anything. We will continue our process to be frugal with our money and our projections and expectations. So it will not change our process at all. And I think it gives you the tools to be able to make your decisions at some point. I have followed the process over the few years, and I see even though the legislation or the local law get passed early, you haven't actually tapped into it. It doesn't mean we are going to, even though things are looking very tight, but it gives you an opportunity to be able to make your decisions. But on the side of administration, we're going to be extremely frugal with how we project and the expectation for the department. That is why we haven't given any department a target, a tax target, increase target as have been given over the previous years. Yeah, telling everyone to provide us with the maintenance of effort. And also, service enhancement and a justification why that enhancement is needed and will also improve services for our residents and taxpayers. So we are looking at maintenance of effort budget at the bottom line.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Shauna?
Yeah, Dan, I know you just brought up 64 million in the bank. I want to be really clear about where this money is and what we're doing with it. Much of that money is actually in reserve funds because we have upcoming projects. We're talking about doing a $40 million center of government. We're talking about doing a shelter at the tune of 10 to 15 million. We're talking about doing a jail that's going to be 30 to 50 million. I mean, we have massive projects that, of course, we've been saving. We've been putting money in the bank so that we don't have to bond 100% of all these projects. Here are some things that we're also talking about doing that are really important to us. We're talking about paying all of our employees a living wage. That's going to be $1.5 million, $2 million extra a year. We're talking about rapid response. We know we have EMS emergencies all over the place, specifically in our rural areas. We know that ambulances, it's taken them 22 minutes to get to Brooktondale or Caroline. Like, these are massive issues. We know that we're going to have to invest in this. $2 million. We know that our homeless problem is absolutely out of control, and we want to solve that. That's not going to be cheap. We know that we're going to have to invest in people. We know that we're going to have to invest in services. We get money from the government to help with that, but there's no way in hell that it's going to cover the amount of money. I'm sorry I said hell, but there's no way that it's going to cover the $2 million of the gap that we're going to see on an annual basis. And if we want to do it right, we're going to have to pay. And so, you know, we flashed this number, $64 million in the bank, and we're going to raise your taxes again this year. You know, I think it needs to be really clear that if we're really talking about apples to apples, we don't have $64 million in the bank if we're planning on doing all these projects. I mean, it's like everyone's eyeballs are like money sign, money sign. And so if we're not talking about doing all these projects, then yeah, let's go ahead and lower, let's not do any taxes at all. Let's just clean out our bank account, our savings account. But no, every single meeting we have, we talk about these projects. And so, you know, you can't have it both ways. Either we're going to invest in people, we're going to invest in our county, we're going to make better space for our employees, we're going to pay them more, or we're just going to sit around the table and BS and talk about all the money we have in our savings account.
I'm going to take another turn. The statement was made that we were in bad financial shape because we made bad tax decisions in the past. And I do not agree with that statement in any way. Greg?
Sean, I think you make really good points, right? I think, and I would agree and support all of those initiatives. And I think, though, it is important, and I am cautious about this statement that was made about the dollars in the bank because we don't really know. Because we haven't closed our books, and I know that our finance team has worked diligently to have that sooner and sooner and sooner every year for us. But I think if you look at our bond payments, there's about a $3 million drop-off, non-accounting for any new bonds in 3031, it drops by like $2.5 million. So there's room in what we're already committed to bond expenses for us to add new bonds for these type of programs. Is that a fair assessment or statement to make? Sans any new bonding that takes place between now and then?
Yeah, we haven't bonded any. We haven't taken on any significant debt this year, so. But there are a couple of projects ongoing now that may require that soon.
Yeah, so I think that there is opportunity to take on responsible debt in future years when those projects will come time to be bonded and fruition. So I think we can do both. And I also don't think, again, to my previous statement, which I'll just make one more time, because of all of these things, we need a very sharp pencil from our county administrator and our county teams, and need to recognize the challenges that we have on the horizon. And we typically have just maintained and added. And I think that this may be an opportunity to look and say, what do we really need to cut? Are there opportunities to cut some things, to add some things? We can't just always be piling on more and more and more. And that's where I struggle with this resolution. But it's probably time to see where the chips will fall.
Any further discussion? Okay, so we are going to vote. It's going to be a roll call, and we need 9 to pass. Thank you.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
No.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Shauna Black. Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
No.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 10-3, the motion passes. Okay, we are now going to take a 10-minute break. It's 7:40. Please be back in your seats at 7:50. Everybody, if you could make your way back to your seats, please. You're on? Okay, we are back in session.
Sit on the dock and yes.
I know. Okay. I gotta get 8 votes. That's why.
Next on the agenda, Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee. There is no report. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, so actually, let's wait another minute. Maury, I want to make sure everyone's back to hear what you have to say. So, is everybody back? Not quite. Okay, let's go to the Downtown Facilities Special Committee. Randy Brown, Chair.
Thank you. We had a meeting this morning, and Holt Architects was here, and they went over, we went over the space needs for the departments, and they went over the project as it was moving forward. The biggest issue is the removal of 3 buildings here on the corner of Tioga and Buffalo, and we have gotten approval from State Historic Preservation Office, but it's not finalized because there are some requirements and contract requirements and other issues that have to be fulfilled. But they're working with numerous individuals, including Cornell and other entities, to talk about the deconstruction process. And we want to make that as transparent as possible. That's the next step. And the goal is to start removal of those buildings in, I believe, the fall or late fall. We also talked about the department relocations that are needed by this. The decision was for county administration and HR to go to the mental health building on Green Street, and that will open up space for IT to move into that floor as well, into the old jail. And then we talked an awful lot about the resolution that will be coming up shortly about the funding and the next steps of the Center of Government building.
Questions or comments for Randy? Mike Sigler.
Randy, I guess I don't understand why there's a resolution in the red folder for this, as opposed to it not just coming out of committee.
Well, we had a resolution that came out of, because this didn't go before, a week before the actual legislature meeting. So it's
Didn't get
got to
on
be
the
a week in
agenda
advance, is
in
that correct?
time. Timing, right?
Is there more to it than that? Katrina has something to say. There's a little more to it than that.
The Downtown Facilities Special Committee reports to facilities and infrastructure. It's a responsibility of that committee. That committee won't meet until after the second meeting in June of the legislature. And this came out of Downtown Facilities this morning, and there were some amendments made, so Legislator Corman entered it as a member filed for this evening's meeting.
Shauna.
Sorry, I'm sucking on a mint. I think I was just wondering, has the conversation about parking been discussed? And I know that we were going to do a parking study, and I think that was like my one concern for us moving forward downtown on this facility. Has there been any discussion of where people are going to park whenever they come down here and where our employees are going to park?
That was discussed today, and they're doing a survey of all the departments as to the constituents who would be visiting them. Ann Corman suggested that we also find out the mode in which they're coming, so they're doing a survey for that. We did talk also about the ADA requirements and the impact that would do on the design of the building and parking. And so that would have an impact. And we don't know what that is yet till they do the final designs or preliminary designs.
Thank you.
So we had a request to take on the resolution now. Arel is here, and so is that okay with everyone if we switch the order midstream here? Okay. In that case, and there's a memo. Well, go ahead and
I can explain it.
Yes, so go ahead and move the resolution, please.
Yeah, I'd like to move Resolution O, which is in your red folder. This is approval of funding for the Center of Government project.
Is there a second? Deborah seconds.
And as to add on to what was explained, so one of the, I think the, and I'm going to pass it over to Corson in a second, so I'll let you know when I'm putting you on the spot. But the main reason we wanted to get this to tonight's legislature meeting is because as far as scheduling and preparation, we are ready to start moving departments, and so we don't want to move departments around without a commitment from the legislature that we are going forward. A couple of things I want to note is that the estimated project is, right now, the estimate for the cost of it is $50 million, and that's a really rough estimate. We don't have a design for the new building. We don't have a design for the renovations for some of the other buildings yet, for the old jail or for this building. So that's a rough estimate from Holt, but that is, just to let you know, that's all in figures. Oh, I didn't even see Arel here. I thought he was just on the Zoom, so Arel can help chime in too. So this is construction, renovation, furniture, all kinds of infrastructure, IT that we're going to need. And so, so that's all in for that. And then as part of the relocation too, some of the expenses that we'll be incurring now also include not just moving, but there'll be probably some minor renovation, and we're for IT to move, that's going to be, they're going to need some monies to do that. And and at some point soon, we'd like to not be slowed down, because we're going to need to, for the Department of, the Board of Elections, we're going to probably need to secure some lease space for them to go in the interim. So anyway, this will help us to go through the steps that we are ready to go to. So I'll defer to Corsa or Arel if I missed anything important.
Yeah, I think you covered everything. I think one of the key points I just want to emphasize is this resolution is not a commitment to a specific contract, but it's a commitment to the project. What we're trying to do right now is, as part of the project timeline that was presented by Holt to us, we expect that there is going to be decommissioning, deconstruction of those 3 buildings from September. To allow that to happen, we need to start making, we need to start the process of relocating the department out of that building. And based on the last resolution that was passed and the discussion that happened, we felt the need to reaffirm the legislature's commitment to this project so that we can proceed on the process. I have been informed that this commitment has been made 2 years ago, but being new into the role, I felt that I wanted to hear that answer be made. That yes, we are committed to the project, continue with the process leading to the project. What we do not want to do is relocate department, decommission, deconstruct those buildings, because the funding has already been approved for this part of the project based on the last capital project that was adopted last year, I believe. But we don't want to do that and then get to construction and we stall. So we just wanted to hear reconfirmation or recommitment to this project as we move forward with our approach to get the project done.
Thank you. Now we also have Arel Lamaro with us, to direct the department head of the facilities department. How'd I do? You're on, Arel.
Well, I think between Ann and Corsa, they've explained what we're trying to achieve here. Typically on capital projects I've been involved in for many years, once you approve a capital project, which this Center of Government has been approved, we're able to move forward to enter into an agreement with architects and engineers and then move forward design into construction. This one has been a little unique in the sense that we worked with, or to put together an application to the State Historic Preservation Office, first to determine whether we had a viable project. And we do. I mean, we've heard back from SHPO that we can move forward and deconstruct the 3 buildings, 300, 30, 308, and also Building C. And so we are moving forward with Holt, that has also been approved as the architect engineer on this project in December. We are going through schematic design now. What we want to, as of course I said, is get a commitment that we can proceed, full steam ahead. We've done a lot of the tasks already in the planning phases. The parking and traffic study is ongoing. We are doing the utility analysis for that site, talking to the city, working with T.G. Miller, one of the subconsultants of Holt. We are already met 3 times with Holt and our own Department of Recycling and Materials Management and the Finger Lakes Reuse to look at deconstructing of the building and how to go about that process. We've already done dimension drawings of all of the 3 buildings that we're planning to deconstruct and done abatement surveys of those to know what we have to abate. So we're starting to put together the deconstruction package to put out for a contractor to start that process. We, as Corsa said, we've also worked with the departments who will be affected in the move, ITS being the primary department at Building C. We have come up with a great relocation plan for them to go to the 3rd floor of the old jail. And we've worked with the provider of fiber. They're able to run cable, aerial cable around the block to the old jail at a minimal cost, so allow basically ITS to continue providing network connectivity for the entire department at a much better cost than we had anticipated, and then very easily to reconnect them when we build the center of government. We're looking at relocating county administration and human resources to the 5th floor of the mental health building with almost no costs except for moving them there. This space has already been painted. It has fairly new carpeting, and we were able to secure the elevator so that clients for mental health or for whole health can go to any floor except the 5th floor. Right now it's locked out. It has been since Alcohol and Drug Council vacated. So we have a good plan, and we're working with a subcommittee looking at how to where to relocate assessment and Board of Elections. So a lot of things are happening, and what we're hoping to achieve through this resolution is getting basically a commitment, as we should have when we did the capital project center government, to move forward. And we will be coming back to not only the Downtown Facility Special Committee, but F&I as we get closer to completing schematic design with an updated estimate prior to going forward with construction or bid packages as far as what the actual construction cost will be. This is an estimate, what we've shared here, and by no means is it the actual firm cost for the project.
Thank you. I've got a couple of people on the list, but before I go to them, Ann, do you want to say a little something about the memo we just got?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yes. So also on your desks, I just put at the break a copy of the memo that we had asked administration to do. So thanks to our deputy administrator, Norma Jane, for doing this. Give you some background information on the project, the relocation, some of the details about the relocation plan, funding, and some next steps. So I would like, so sorry for the lateness on this, but it was a follow-up from our meeting this morning, and I would like this included with the resolution in the minutes.
Okay, Rich.
Thank you, Dan. I will support the resolution, but I did want to respond to our guest who was here tonight who I think, used the word implore in imploring us to slow down. I feel like we have been very deliberate with this process, and we have taken multiple votes, public, and there's been a lot of public attention on this. The media has covered this issue because it is a very big project, but we certainly had substantial discussion about did we want to purchase the properties, and then we formed the Downtown Facilities Committee. Randy, thank you for all your work on that, but it has been, you know, public meeting after public meeting about this issue. We certainly had a public vote and discussion about hiring a design team, and we've had multiple conversations about configurations of what goes in the building and what doesn't. I cannot imagine somebody saying that this is a surprise. It absolutely should not be. Including over the course of my time on the legislature, we've had the ongoing discussion that we need to consolidate location. And so I'm really comfortable that this is proceeding in a way that the public has had a chance to comment and will have further opportunities to comment. You know, the one thing I'd say is it's a big price tag to look at. That's a big number. But I am confident that we're doing everything we can to deliver the project in a financially responsible way. And frankly, if we wait longer, it's probably going to be more expensive. So I support. Thank you.
Mike Sigler.
Just a few, I had a question and then a couple other things. Randy, this is your committee, right? You've led this committee for how long?
Year and a half.
Year and a half. Okay, I really feel like this should go through committee. I'm not going to vote on something that was in a red folder, $50 million. I'm just not going to do that.
It was passed unanimously at committee today.
Yeah, it wasn't though, because it's in my red folder.
It was passed unanimously at committee today, but it wasn't able to get on the agenda because, as was explained, first off,
my understanding there are changes in the resolution we're going to be voting on that did not pass out of committee.
that the committee asked. We asked
Yeah.
that them to be changed. It was passed conditionally if these changes were made. So it was the committee that wanted them.
Randy, as committee chair, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, it did pass unanimously through committee, and the reason was I voted for it because I wanted the full legislature an opportunity to speak to it. I have more to say if you want me to.
I'll get you back in the queue, okay?
That's right.
Mike Sigler.
And then does this committee then report to facilities? Okay, so anyway, I'm comfortable waiting for a month on a project that we've spent over years doing. I'm not really that concerned about, we have to jump tonight to do this. So I don't know. I don't want to slow it down, Rich. I'm not trying to say that I believe Bob was completely correct, but I also don't think that, you know, after 2 years, it's like, oh gosh, if we don't move, we have the land, we have the plan for the buildings. I would just like to, I just want this to go through the whole committee process, to be honest with you. So it's definitely the largest expenditure we're going to be making over the next probably 20, 30 years. The last thing I had was, I was talking to a colleague. They had a question. I agree with this question. Why aren't we putting everything in this one building? I mean, we're building from scratch. We can talk about this now. We had considered other options. I mean, I had brought an option forward that didn't pan out about building outside the city. And it turned out it probably would have been more expensive. But the big thing was we wouldn't have been able to build kind of what we wanted. And it was always my understanding the center of government would be like the center of government. Everything would be not under one roof perhaps, but at least on this campus. And I'm wondering why we're not maybe doing that. So.
Okay, so.
And that wasn't a question just for me. I was talking to somebody else and they had the same question.
Okay, we've got quite a few people on the list. Maybe somebody will address that question. Greg is next.
Mike, if I can, to your question, you know, as a member of both the F&I and the Downtown Special Committee, this resolution as presented with the amendments, you know, really is not substantively different than what was unanimously voted on in the committee. Maybe what should have happened is we got the committee resolution and then we adopted this as an amended resolution or substituted it. But we did what we did, and I think as a committee member, this is fine. I also think the conversation in committees are kind of moot when it comes to a $50 million purchase. It should be a committee of the whole, and that here is the legislature. So we can, from 4 people from downtown F&I mean, I saved my breath today because I think it's more important that 14 or 13 people, have this discussion out in the open than just a few members of a committee, because it is that big of a purchase. I originally was not a fan of downtown. I still have some questions. I would like to see in our project overview, the memo that was provided, while I think it was great, it needs to lead with enhanced access and essentially enhance access to services by members of the community is first and foremost in this project. And then the staff considerations, I believe, are secondary in that. But if we provide better space for our staff, we can better then serve our community. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg. Why not put it all under one roof and one campus? 1, we don't have the space, and 2, we don't have the money. We have a whole health building. We have a mental health building. We have a whole health building, right? Those things, those ships have sailed and they're at port, right? We can't move them down here to the postage stamp of the Key Bank building. So this is the best we can do. We're consolidating in a campus with a few satellites that were designed and placed to best serve the constituents in which they serve. So I think this has not been done in secret. This has been from the 4 year, this is my 4th year or 3rd and a half at this point on the legislature. It's been a center of conversation. And I think, I look back to when Legislator Dawson and I put forward a resolution calling for the deconstruction or the moving forward of this space a couple of years ago, because we felt that it was kind of stalling in committee. And this is where we are. This has not been rushed. This is not, I'm going to respond directly to Bob Lynch's comments as another elected official, not as a member of the public. But this is not done in secrecy. This has been wide open. We've gone through the SHPO process because one of the things that's important to me in this is that it's not just a county burden, but that we are able to receive state and federal funding. Without the SHPO process, we would not be able to do that. This burden of $50 million, and I hope whoever's writing an article about this, should and will not be entirely on the taxpayer of Tompkins County. There will be other resources, other grants, and other support that will go into making this happen. And if we can't get that capital stack to look somewhat attractive, there's still a vote that we could say, shelve the whole thing, and we spent some money, but we can't figure out how to pay for it. That also is a reality too. So I don't think this makes sense to go back anywhere near a committee, because this is a committee that needs to decide. This is a committee of the whole, and this is a decision for the legislature and only the legislature to make.
Randy.
Yeah, so year and a half that the Downtown Special Committee working in this, but it's been going on since 2020 or 2021, so it's been going on for quite a while. One thing that we talked about regarding the SHPO approval of taking these buildings down is that this resolution doesn't have to pass for that to move forward, right? So we can still move forward with that, which we're going to, regardless of if we pass this resolution or not. I've actually reported on the surface building to the towns of Newfield and Enfield at least a dozen times over the last few years about what's going on with this project, and received a few questions, but so they're very aware of what our plan is. My issue is the money, and the numbers keep changing, and that really concerns me. The building's up to 48,000 square feet now. It was 55, it went down to 40, went to 45, now it's 48. This all happened in a matter of a month. So I do feel like even though it's been a long time, I feel like we're moving a little quick here on this. I think that we don't need to approve this to go forward. I'm not sure I'm gonna vote for it or not. I do think it belongs in the full legislature. And I'm not clear on really, I want to thank Norma Jane for providing all the capital data. That was my biggest concern on how it's going to affect our taxes. Greg just went over with me the capital plan and the expense of that. We're up till like 31, we're pretty tapped, it looks like. And then it drops quickly. I'd say cut in half our capital payments. So I want to understand that better. But also want to share it with the public. I think it's really important for the public to see what we're seeing when it comes to how much it's going to cost and how it's going to affect our taxes or not. So I'm not sure I'm going to vote for it.
Travis.
Well, I never believed this thing should be downtown to begin with. We've had other conversations about other property that the county owns, and we couldn't make decisions on what to do with that property. That property's downtown. I'm not talking about whole health and mental health. And we couldn't make decisions because we said, well, what if we need that property because it may not be able to fit on this campus or be accessible. So there are properties, our offices downtown that we don't even know if are going to be located over here. That's a problem for me. Somebody that works for the municipality of Ithaca, I hear folks that work at City Hall complain about parking, complain about the congestion. I hear from constituents and people that live in Ithaca complain about having to go over to City Hall. Not everybody can walk, and there really isn't much places to park unless you're willing to pay for parking. And so I don't really feel that this is the best place for this. And I know some of these decisions were made before I got here, and it is what it is. The other thing is, we just spent $8 million building a building down the street, and 75% of it is a big open gym. I can't believe this thing is only going to be $50 million, especially by the time we get started. I just can't imagine what this price tag is going to actually look like. And so I'm probably not going to vote for it. Well, I'm definitely not going to vote for it, just on the fact that I don't believe it should be downtown to begin with. And it's not going to house all of our downtown departments, and it's not going to be $50 million.
Mike Lane.
Well, I think Greg actually responded to Mike Ziegler about why we can't have everything under one building. That was what I really wanted to mention. I will support this. I've worked on this whole concept for over 20 years in various committees. And I want to thank all the work that's been done by our staff. Certainly, Arel Namaro has been terrific on this over the years. We need to move this forward. We've made the decision, I think, 2 years ago, and we've hired an architect firm. We put $9 million in a capital fund to move this ahead. We decided to do this before we do the jail. That was a huge decision that was made. If we're going to do it, let's do it.
Lee.
Couple of questions before I comment. The overall costs are outlined here, but my question is, does the 50 million include the acquisition costs or prior demolition costs that have been so far?
No.
The purchasing of the property in this block, the purchasing of the property in the other block, the Baker building coming down the Sears Street? No. So that expense is in addition.
It's a sunk cost.
And how did we go from 45 to 48 in 2 weeks? 48,000.
Well, to be honest, when I reviewed the numbers that Holtz had prepared, I noticed that they had miscalculated the number, and so I caught that and said we've got to increase the number. So the 48 is the gross square footage, and that's confusing because most of the numbers that we've shown in our graphics to at least committee are what we call departmental gross square footage, which is the department's space needs plus a grossing factor, which is just for internal circulation. Then those departmental gross square footages, you apply another grossing factor, which incorporates your lobby areas, circulation, main circulation, elevators, stairwells, mechanical rooms, and that's how you get to the 48. And so as I said, I noticed that there was an error from the 45 gross square footage. That's not to say that as we get into schematic design, because as I've said before, this is all conceptual, and we haven't started laying anything out. That's why we're trying to get to a point where I can tell the architects move, full steam ahead to start doing the schematic design. Once we do that, we can get a much better sense of the total square footage. Right now, it's all very conceptual, just based on the space needs from the departments. But once we start laying it out, and depending on the configuration, if it's more of an L or a block, we can either save on a lot of that circulation space to draw down the gross square footage. So the 48, I think, is a better number. My hope is that we can refine that number as we move through schematic design.
Which is where I thought we were at by passing the resolution 2 weeks ago, was to move you forward on the conceptual design. And I'm hearing two things. It's not a commitment, but it is a commitment. And it signals that we're going to go ahead. When I come on the legislature, the talk was $20 million. We finally set a number here going into the budget last year and said, well, let's say $40 million. That's the more practical. And tonight we're up to $50 million. And I understand why we've got there, but times and circumstances change. And through the discussion earlier about why we should be prepared to exceed the property tax cap, and comments regarding the uncertainty of the state and federal budgetary future, I don't feel any better as we're moving along. We're sitting here with a flat sales tax. Lori says 33.24%. And well, we should be at 33.33, but that's encouraging news. It's not as bad as where we were last year. Our assessments remain flat. We're not seeing any more tax base, and probably won't. We may see some areas decrease in the next couple of years. Our investment income is declining. Our sin taxes are negligible, casinos, cannabis. Our tax credits, kudos to Terry and Narelle and those that have worked on it, but it's pretty clear that our ambitions with the green facilities probably aren't going to come to pass. We've spent, $14 million out of the 28 that was allocated, and it's done a third of the work that was anticipated when we entered that program. And at the budget retreat, we were informed that it looks as though that our reserves are underfunded. At some point, we should be moving ourselves toward that magic number, whatever that may be. I just am concerned and have remained concerned. You were talking $2 to $4 million on a shelter for the homeless. Talking earlier with Greg, it looks as though we're positioned where a substantial amount or most of that shelter could be covered through outside sources. Hope so. I'll take that. Rich, you're reporting to us every meeting about the increasing occupancy of the Warren Road facility and potential for board out costs. And if that trend continues, it may force that discussion on the public safety building sooner rather than later. Medicaid cuts, we're hearing it. The airport remains unstable. We've now got a pressure on us for a $2 million increase to cover emergency medical services that would be probably 100% or close to it funded by the property tax levy. So all this, again, now we're up to a $50 million discussion. I don't see the revenues increasing. I don't see a good projection at this point as to what this commitment or non-commitment of $50 million will do as far as an impact on the property tax levy moving forward in the use of reserves. I can't in good conscience support tagging that number, not having a better idea what the implication on the future tax rate may be. Not that I don't want to see the project move forward. I do want to see a final schematic design, and I do want a solid number as to what the costs look to be. And I kind of agree with Travis. I'm afraid 50 is not even going to do it. So there's where I am.
Okay, I've got 4 people in the queue. Amanda, you're next.
I think that if we do not pass this tonight, we should forget the whole project, because in a few months, you're going to get, 8 or 9 new legislators who are going to have whole different opinions. You're going to be back at the drawing board and starting over. I have been talking about this project for 8 years. And the reason that it came up, I remember Jason Molino sitting here and going through a space assessment and how the different departments are really, really struggling. They had a whole listing of ways that we could configure the old jail, this building, other buildings that we have, to make it better for the staff. The staff were suffering and not having enough desks for people to sit in. Then somebody got the idea of buying this property over here and building a center of government. It's a block away, made a lot of sense. You could do a lot on that property. We all got very excited about that. And then people got really excited about this over here, and everyone decided that this was going to be the place, which I did not agree. Just have to say that every time. Now I'm on board. This is it. This is what we've been working on. We've been talking about this property. We've dealt with that property in numerous ways. We've been talking about this for years and years and years. And if there isn't the desire to build a center of government, let's just drop it. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's reconfigure the buildings that we do have so the departments have more space and they can get all their people in there, and let it go. Let's use the money back to the green facilities and back to the public safety building and now to the shelter. I mean, it just does not make sense to keep talking about it because people are a little bit concerned or haven't had enough time. If you have not had enough time at this point, you have not been paying attention. So that would be my recommendation. If there isn't enough will, let's just forget it.
Deborah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in freaking Groundhog Day. We have been talking about this for at least 6 years. And the reason the price keeps going up is because we keep talking about it. Nothing gets cheaper. And here's the other piece of this. This resolution resolved further that this funding shall support the full scope of the project, including deconstruction of existing facilities, planning and design activities, the construction of the new Center of Government building, and the renovation of the old jail and a portion of the building that we're in now. So that's one reason that the cost has gone up. I agree with Amanda. I mean, if 6 years isn't enough, we ought to just give it up. You know, and as for whether it should be downtown or not, I mean, if it's not downtown, it's going to be somewhere in the burbs. And I mean, if we put it in Groton, people in Enfield are not going to be very happy. If we put it in Lansing, people in Trumansburg are going to have to travel south and then turn around and travel north. I mean, there's a reason Ithaca is the county seat. It's because it's in the middle. And I certainly appreciate the fact that people do not love coming down here if for no other reason than the parking is miserable. But I just don't, I mean, I don't see a way around putting it in Ithaca, because if you put it anywhere else, you're making it much more inconvenient for some segment of county population to get to the county services that they need. I'm just sick of talking about this. If we go any slower on this, we're going to be in reverse. So I will be supporting this because all it really does is set a budget.
Shauna.
So I'm actually disappointed that we've had this whole conversation and no one has brought up the fact that we shouldn't have sold the old library.
We shouldn't have sold the old
I
library.
know, we should. It's very disappointed, very disappointed. So I'm glad at least that happened tonight. I think the one question I had as far as parliamentary law goes is, do we need 9 votes to approve this since it's allocating a dollar amount? I guess my concern is that we're talking about allocating $50 million to this project. What happens if 8 of us votes, it passes, and then we keep going down the line, and then we're ready to pay a bill, and we're still at 8 votes?
I don't think we're actually spending any money here, but someone more smarter than me, please weigh in.
Yep. I agree. It's more aspirational than an actual allocation or what I'm losing the word. It's aspirational as opposed to a allocation, a fixed expenditure.
So I guess my concern is, so right now, 8 of us are, let's just say 8 of us vote to move forward. 6 months down let's say like in December, we don't have the money to move forward with this. Like we don't have the votes, we don't have the 9 votes to move forward in order to pass this capital purchase.
True, right?
That is always true.
10 for bonding, isn't it?
That's always the...
It's just a shame because we've wasted a lot of money with architecture plans. We've wasted a lot of staff time. And so I hope whenever, people are voting this down or are not wanting to approve this, we realize that there's also a cost in our staff time and frustration, that our staff has spent a lot of time in this. Our staff have gotten excited about this project, and they're
not the only ones that are going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
Veronica.
I agree with Deborah and Amanda and Shauna, basically. And now I forgot what I was going to say, other than I don't think anything has really qualitatively changed in this whole process that would affect people's decision-making. There was at least one concrete, promising idea of maybe some buildings in some other location would work. We determined it wouldn't, so that's a qualitative difference. But we still have all the same staff that need space, if not more. We have, as last I knew, a couple people working in an office, just interior with no windows that used to be a storage room. We have someone wearing gloves all winter because their office is cold and it is just not fixable because of the old building. We have the courts going to kick us out of the courthouse. We have another department that's whole thing is public facing and they're very hard to find, tucked away in a rental space. All of this is still true, and it costs money, and this is a big number, but I honestly think in general, people, not just us, put too much stock in big number looks big, because oftentimes, if we don't go forward at the center of government, it's not like we're not spending money at the end of the day to deal with so many of these things, the inefficiency of buildings, the unhappiness among our staff, the not being an employer of choice, the struggling there, the struggling with people accessing services, which leads to this and that problem, which is going to come back and to like bite us in emergency ways. I guess I'm frustrated, and I don't see why not to move forward at this point. Not to mention the like, we can just sit here and debate, and that's like pretty easy, but we've hired a whole architectural firm at least twice, if not more times, to work on this. We have a bunch of our staff has been doing some intense specific work. I think it sounds like numbers are changing because these plans have not been sitting on the shelf. They're being very actively worked on, and also the cost of things go up. Not moving forward with this is not going to help anything, I don't think. So let's pass it.
Okay, we are approaching 1 hour on this topic. There's still 2 more people on the queue. Ann.
Thank you, Dan. I'll just try not to repeat anything that anybody's already said. I also see this as a way to streamline services, increase accessibility, not just for the public, but even for hiring. There's people have different abilities. So some of our buildings are very hard to navigate. So we owe it to our employees, we owe it to people that we could potentially hire to make our buildings more accessible. And someone mentioned about they'd like to see the plans, they'd like to look at those. Well, we're not going to have plans if we are saying no now. So we're going to have, when we get the plans done, then we're going to be close to getting estimates. And then we have another decision point of whether we want to go forward then, but we can't get there if we don't keep going along. And the county staff and Holt is doing great, keeping on target on the timeline. So I appreciate that.
Randy.
Yeah, I think the ship is sailed in this. If we're going to do anything, it's going to be downtown because we've purchased the property and we're this far down the road. I have a couple questions though. Does this require 8 votes to pass?
Yes.
Okay. And if we bond this, Lori, one of the last questions I get to ask you, when would we actually start bonding it?
I think I will speak to it. We are not borrowing anything against this project this year.
Understand.
We do not anticipate borrowing next year. Most likely we will bond in 2027 when we actually start construction.
Okay. So looking at our capital plan, it's going to be a big jump in that year because our capital plan stays pretty high until the end of 31.
Yeah,
so
it's in there already.
That will impact our taxes for at least a couple of years.
Yeah, this is in our capital plan already.
Not the one I just looked at.
Not the bonding.
Yeah.
We just saw that. I just looked at the most current one. I didn't look at.
That's bond payments, not the capital plan.
Okay.
Not until 2030.
Yeah, it's not hitting our finances until 2030, but it is in there. It's factored into our capital plan for this.
Of course, please use your microphone.
I think maybe that's why I couldn't hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, just to throw a wrench. So what I believe is happening with this resolution is we are committing funding. We are saying that when we prepare our budget, when it's time to go out and bond, we're going to be putting money in the budget to pay the bond payment. And whatever, there's some cash put aside to be able to begin the project for sure. So it probably won't hit until 2027, 2028, where that will then begin to go up. Depending on how much it's going to cost will depend on whether we're going to go out for a ban because we're waiting on some funding. There's a lot of variables to deal with at this point. But we are going to see, if you vote for this tonight, you are committing to spending money at some time down the road in the next few years. Because you can't start the project without planning to continue it through. seeing it through. But we probably won't see it really inflate the numbers on that debt service schedule until somewhere around 2029, it'll be close to when the other debt drops off. But there won't be a lot of flexibility to be adding new projects in. So if we're talking about any other projects, we want to be very cognizant of that as well.
Lee, I wasn't sure. Did you have your hand up again?
I'm not done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I appreciate all the work that the legislature prior to me did on this project. And I'm not going to be here when the tax rate goes high. So yeah, but I'm worried about it. I'm worried that for what that costs me. And my biggest concern is, and I've had this discussion with Holt Architects, and I tried to pinpoint like the cost of this, and they just don't know. They don't want to commit to anything. Is it $500 a square foot? Is it $800 a square foot? And so it's just such an unknown for me. And I just know it's going to raise our taxes at some point, but it will drop again 3 years later, if I read that document correctly. So I want to offer an amendment to this, if I could.
Go ahead.
And it's under the first resolved. And it says, resolved on a recommendation of Downtown Facility Special Committee that Tompkins County Legislature approve funding of up to $50 million contingent on approval of the building itself, the actual drawings. So
Contingent on the building itself.
yeah, of the actual estimate of the design we pick. Which if I understand correctly, they're hoping to have designs available to us by September?
Yes.
Got the wording?
And I think it has to happen in this legislature. It has to happen here.
This is not friendly. It doesn't make any sense.
Contingent upon the actual.
This doesn't make any logical sense.
Katrina's going to read it out to make sure she's got the wording right.
The Tompkins County Legislature approves funding of up to $50 million contingent upon the actual estimate of the design.
Yeah, or something that sounds better than that.
Point of information.
It's your amendment, so you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need
And I would vote for it then.
motion.
Greg, your point of information. Go ahead.
In our funding policy, is it correct that we would have to, or in our fiscal policies, that we would have to approve contracts over a certain dollar amount to be paid to contractors, vendors, et cetera, from this project?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. So we're going to have
So
to
that
get to
Leaves
vote again.
the bank. We have to approve
we
it.
have to approve. So the mechanism to approve this $50 million is already in existence. Is that a correct interpretation of our policies?
Yes.
Yes, as I indicated, this is not to spend 50 million. This is to commit to building the project. Every single contract will come to you through our regular procurement process for approval before we move ahead with every single stage. But I just want to be comfortable that there's a commitment to the project so that we'll start moving people from next week.
So Randy had a motion for an amendment. Is there a second? I'm sorry, Randy, the amendment dies for lack of a second.
That's okay.
Did you have anything more you wanted to say?
Nope.
Okay. Lee, did you have, I was still not sure. You're very subtle in your little hand there.
Not little hands, but it's a question. If a constituent asks me, what's the worst case scenario? How much is this going to raise my taxes? Do we even have an idea how to answer that?
We don't know yet. Because as we wrote in the
Get that
paper,
information.
there's various different funding sources that we are looking at, and also as Randy indicated, we have bonds that we are going to pay that will drop off and some coming in. So depending on the condition of the time that we are passing in a specific budget, that is when we will have a clear idea how that impact will be. And also based on the decision that we made last year, allocating excess funding to capital reserve, we hope to be able to be on that path. and also invest wisely so that we can generate investment revenue to support some of these projects. So it's a combination of many factors, but as we move into the 2028, 2029, as Norma indicated, that's when we have an idea how the direct impact on our budget process will be when we start paying off the bonds.
Greg.
Of course, I want to push back a little bit, and I think that this is a slight failure of the project to present the worst-case scenario, because we've allocated $9 million. We're saying that there's a $50 million price tag. That's $41 million. If we went to bond for $41 million today, how much would that bond payment cost us? About $2 million a year? 2.5? So that's a 2.5% increase to the levy, right? So, no, 500,000 is a 0.5% increase to the levy currently? 1%. Sorry, 500 is 1%, so it would be a 4% increase. So worst case scenario, it's a 4.5% increase to the levy. That is the answer to Lee's question in a very raw, very back of the napkin, sort of bar stool calculation. And I think the gap in presenting financial modeling around this project is what's causing a lot of this dialogue to stall. And anybody who's ever been a part of a multi-million-dollar project, there's typically substantive financial modeling for future conditions. There's assumptions that are made, and maybe those are happening on the back end and just not being shared publicly because nobody wants to commit to anything, and it's tough to get it out there in public while you're kind of making the sausage along the way. But to answer your question, Lee, the worst case is 4.5% increase on the levy if we had to bond for the full 41 million on top of the, which we won't, on top of the 9 million that we've already set aside. That's the worst case scenario. And I'm just shocked that we haven't asked that information until this point of like, what's the worst case? All conditions equal, it's going to be a 4.5% increase to the levy. And that is one of the reasons why I'm very stingy when it comes to our levy increases, because I know these things are on the horizon that we need to do. So we need to be fiscally conservative right now because we have future costs on the horizon that we need to balance for. And so worst case is 4.5%, and it's a
50
at 50. Yeah, but again, Lee, at some point we have to be comfortable with some level of assumption, right? Costs may change, but the longer we kick this can, and Arel, the truth is, the sooner we contract with subs and GCs and put it out to bid, the sooner we're going to have a dollar amount locked in, right?
Yes.
And market conditions can't then affect some of those contracts.
Yes.
So we're either going to make rent payments or bond payments. I would rather make bond payments than rent payments. This is what the decision comes down to, because we don't have adequate space. So we're either going to rent it and pay somebody else, or we're going to pay ourselves to create an asset that can live it on much longer than any rent, than any leased space could be foreseeable used by the county. I mean, this is a generational project.
I just mentioned 4.5% be a one-time. That's not an annual.
It's a one-time bond.
Yeah, just wanted that for everyone's sake.
Thank you.
Rich?
Yeah, I guess I feel comfortable in supporting this resolution today. It is a big number and it's a big commitment, but you know, you have to do it to keep the ship sailing in the direction we've all talked about for all this time. That's not to say if you find out there's just this huge surprise, like say the national government does something that just destroys our financial condition, or interest rates go bonkers, or something, we can say no. You know, there's real cost to saying no, to opting out, but we can do that. And, you know, a responsible legislature would consider doing that if conditions change radically. But the idea that we're going to wait until we know all the conditions, we'll never know. We have to continue to sail in the direction we want to go, being cognizant that we have to keep our eyes open. I'm comfortable with voting yes on this resolution and moving in the direction we all have agreed to.
Okay, I only have one person left in the queue. I'm thinking we can vote after that. Mike Lane.
I was going to call the question. So if you're ready to vote, just go right ahead.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we probably want a roll call vote. Thinking?
Yes, please.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
No.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
No.
Randy Brown.
No.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
9-4.
9-4, the motion carries. All right, so before we go to the next item, I need to go back to Maury. Maury spent a little time from earlier in the meeting doing a little more research and wanted to give us a little update. Maury.
Okay, this has to do with Resolution M concerning the expenditure from the Tax Stabilization Reserve to pay for some DSS expenditures. There had been some concern about, well, what would happen if we took the money from someplace else? Would the money from the Tax Stabilization Reserve eventually flow back to use in terms of basically anything that would support the taxpayers? And I am comfortable with that because although funds should not be withdrawn from the Tax Stabilization Reserve at this time, I am comfortable that the corrective process that we need to do can lead to an orderly winding down of the reserve such that the funds would be available to the county for, it may have to go through several steps, but none of it would be lost. None of it needs to be replenished. It can be wound down. And meaning whatever's left in that reserve can be put toward, can flow into a couple of places, and then those places that they flow into would free up funds for something else. So I think nothing would be lost other than some time for which that money still needs to sit in the reserve fund by changing it to have the funding so that the financials can be filed on time and so forth, come from someplace else.
Okay, so Resolution M, we had postponed it. We were going to do an executive session. However, somebody, I think it might have been Greg, had proposed the idea of taking the money from somewhere else and that asked if that would harm the reserve account. It won't. So if we want, we can bring it back to the table now and vote on that proposal. What's your preference?
No,
Yes, of
yes,
course.
you can bring back to the table, and we will change the tax stabilization fund to appropriating fund balance. Just pay for it.
So what's the motion to?
Who has to bring it back?
Katrina, say that again, please.
Maury and I discussed it during recess. We don't have to make a motion to bring it back. You can just bring it back because it was postponed. It wasn't tabled.
So who would do that? The person that moved it originally, or you? I would. So let me see some nods or shakes. Should we do this? Should we take care of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Bringing back Resolution M back on the floor. And do we pick up where we left off in the discussion? Okay, Greg.
Yeah, I would like to amend on packet page 107 that the appropriate language for lines 12 and 13 reflect the allocation of funds covering these expenses come from fund balance, and the appropriate account numbers to be placed in there, leaving the $1.49 million figure in place.
Catch that?
I'll get the account information afterwards, but to come from fund balance.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Is there a second? Randy seconds. So, and this is an amendment to the original resolution, correct? Amendment to the main motion? Okay. So we have an amendment, we have a second. Is there anybody that finds that amendment unfriendly? Okay, that becomes the main motion then. We've got Resolution M as was written, except we're now taking it from the fund balance. Further discussion. Ready for a vote then? All in favor? Any opposed? We have one opposed. That's 12-1. The motion carries. Lori, thank you for your legal work.
You're welcome. I will try to get all that corrective material to BCP, if not this month, then for July.
Thank you. Okay, we are now, I think, up to Government Operations Committee. Is that correct? Yes. Amanda Champion, Chair.
Did Lee go? Facilities? Yes. Did the resolution, but okay, I'll go. I don't really have a report. We are meeting on Thursday, June 5th at 2 o'clock.
Questions or comments for Government Operations? Next up, Health and Human Service Committee. Travis Brooks, Chair.
We met on May 21st. We meet again on June 18th. We passed several resolutions. We had two really good presentations. One was from Jeremy from Whole Health, who talked about the integration of the public side versus public health and mental health. There's a few things that stood out. You all really should watch it if you're interested. One was the excitement that Jeremy had as he was sharing the presentation, the pride. He talked about how the responsibility in the past for people to get services was shouldered by the individual, and now the burden is shouldered by the department, and they've moved into what he would call a one-stop shop, where people would be treated as a person and holistically. So if you went in for some sort of public services, they would see if you needed any mental health services, and you didn't have to come back and schedule another appointment. You could move from department to department, from side to side, getting rid of the silos. And that was really cool. To me, it showed something that I think about a lot with county government. Are we doing things the same that we always have? Are we being new? Are we being innovative? Are we our department heads and administration and us, are we eager to make change and do things differently? So I thought that was really cool and a great example for other departments on how to treat people and get them everything they need and take the burden on ourselves rather than put them on them. So it's really a great presentation. There was a lot more. But in the interest of time, I suggest that you go back and watch it and that it be used as an example for other departments. Frank Krupa and Marty Stallone came from now Centralis Health instead of Cayuga Health, and they talked about the Intensive Crisis Stabilization Unit. There was a lot of information. It's another presentation you should watch. But Frank did say that in December, they hope to have the withdrawal and intensive crisis unit up, which is 20 beds. This summer, they just posted the position for the program director. And by the end of the first quarter in 2026, they hope to have the stabilization unit up. So they are moving along. That's another 20 beds. They just took over the lease last week, the day before we had our meeting, and mowed the yard. They were working on getting the lights turned on. So they're excited. They're moving along. They're really committed to the project. So I suggest that if you want to know more information, watch the presentation. That's what I got.
Questions or comments for Travis? Rich?
That's the detox facility is December. They hope to get that open.
Detox, December, crisis stabilization, and at the end of the first quarter in 2026.
Anything else for Health and Human Services?
No.
Great. Thank you. Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We next meet tomorrow, June 4th at 3 o'clock here in Chambers. Hopefully we will have a crisp meeting. We have 2 updates of interest. The current housing environment from the continuum of care perspective, and then also the Convention and Visitors Bureau 2024 annual report. Other than that, there are no expected resolutions on the agenda.
Questions or comments for Greg? Thank you. We're now up to individual member filed resolutions. We already did N. No, we didn't do N, we did O, so we're doing N. Rich.
Thank you, Dan. I would move a resolution to accept a proposal from the Center for Governmental Research to evaluate emergency medical services in Tompkins County, doc ID 13340, and I would move it.
And Mike Lane seconds.
And if I could speak to the resolution. This is the result of the conversation we had at the Public Safety Committee, and as I indicated earlier, I'm bringing it as a member filed so that we would have enough time to get a report back from a consultant prior to getting into our budget process in the fall. And a little bit of background. I know it's late, so I don't want to go on at too much length, but this all arose because we were approached by representatives from TCOG, the Tompkins County Council of Governments, from various towns, indicating that their emergency medical services, particularly the ambulance services, are getting really stressed, and the mutual aid calls are driving these towns to provide a lot of services outside of their municipal borders. And they are looking to the county to assist in helping try to alleviate this. Tompkins County is not alone. We're seeing really crisis levels in county after county. I wouldn't describe our situation as a full crisis. I think what we've done with the rapid medical response has mediated some of the problems, but the trends aren't really where we want them to be. And this is a long-term issue we really do need to think about addressing. It's a profound one in a way, in that this is an area where the county has not been involved before the rapid medical response. But what we're also seeing in county after county in upstate is that counties are stepping up because they just have to, that there will not be this emergency service if we don't act. And as a result of that meeting, there was a representative from the Center for Governmental Research. And by the way, this is the organization that helped us with our study on alternatives to incarceration that led to a lot of our policy proposals in that area. They are a very long-standing consulting group that specializes in advising governmental entities and have spent a lot of time advising municipalities on emergency medical services issues. A representative was at that TCOG meeting, and there was a request made for that person to prepare a proposal for some consulting services. On a parallel track, the Department of Emergency Response worked on and prepared a proposal to expand the rapid medical response program to actually do transports as an ambulance service. And this would supplement the existing ambulance services in the county, but it's a pretty significant commitment. We're talking over $2 million. There were 3 different scenarios, but it's a big, big change in what we would be doing. But that was put on the table at our Public Safety Committee meeting, and after a lengthy discussion, the thinking was, we really need to have an independent third party look at this whole situation, do some baseline examination of where we're at, where we think we're going to be, what the trends are, and evaluate our options with some ideas that are happening in other counties. That's what CGR can bring to us. We may not want to do anything here this budget cycle. It is a big commitment, but we did commit to the towns at that TCOG meeting that we would look at the issue. And even if we don't do it this year, we're going to probably have to face this in the coming years. My view is that getting a good consultant's report would really help us think through this issue because it's so complex. And out of the conversation we had at Public Safety, we raised a lot of points we'd want to know about, and those are the bullet points in this resolution that further refine the scope of what we would ask CGR to look at to help us understand this issue in their report. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Resolution N. Lee.
Where are you proposing the 48,000 to come from? Contingency?
Yes, and I apologize. I should have put that in the resolution, but yes.
So you need 10 votes, or how many votes?
Simple majority, says Katrina.
For contingency?
Can't. Any requests for contingency funds just can't be on the consent agenda.
Ann.
So just wondering why we can't do an RFP, just, that's our usual process to get ask for a request for proposals. And so this seems like this short-circuited that by, I'm not sure who, but somebody asked for a request for a proposal from one organization, and what I think is that other organizations we could get different proposals from. So I'm just wondering why we can't do that.
We certainly could do that. We would miss the budget cycle. CGR came to the meeting, and it appears like it's within our discretion to use CGR in this instance. If we want the information this year, feasibly, I don't see how we could go to RFP. But yes, we certainly could do that. It just means we wouldn't.
Question is, do we have to?
They have been.
I can address that a little bit.
Thank you, Maura.
One is at the $48,000 level, pursuant to county procurement policy, we would not require an RFP. It's something that could be done on the basis of quotations. More generally, because the service is a consulting service that's professional in nature, if we believe that it's in the best interest of the county not to go through the quotation process, which really involves obtaining another quote for the similar service. But if we think that's not in the best interest of the county because there's a need to get this information prior to the opening of the budget cycle, then that is, that determination can be made. I can address it by memorandum indicating that it's not in the best interest of the county to proceed in that manner. But it's not at the RFP level to begin with.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
So 2 questions. I'm wondering what our administration thinks about this, and wondering if we could get an estimate of what the timeline would be for getting this if we went with CGR, and what would be the timeline if we did an RFP?
I think with an RFP, when we post it, usually has to wait for at least 30 days to get responses. And also we have to go through the evaluation process and make determinations. So it will add some time in deciding and choosing vendors, and also depending on how many bids that we do select or receive, it will determine the timeline. The other thing that my conversation with tomorrow is, because we have used this agency for similar services in the past, the assumption is we have sufficient information to make a determination that this is the process we want to proceed in.
Thank you.
Randy.
Yeah, Annie asked a question too. So when would we get the report? How long would it take?
I don't have it in front of me, but the timeline, I believe, was mid-August.
Okay, thank you.
Lee.
Rich, is it fair to say that this resolution merges two parallel paths that public safety and Department of Emergency Response were on, in addition to what the council governments were, and that this consultant has been working with that subcommittee of the Tompkins County Council of Governments? I want to bring a little clarity to it, but is that fair to say?
That's a good clarification. Thank you, Lee. Yes.
Mike Lane.
I'd support this. I seconded it, and we need to go ahead with it. But I want to say that I know the Council of Governments would very much like this all to happen and have the county pay for it all. And I do think that the municipalities that historically have provided these kinds of services have to have a dog in this fight.
Greg.
I would agree with Mike, for sure. This needs to be a collective intermunicipal response. I think this is a very good thing. I think as hard as it is to hear, there are people that are not getting timely services within our community. This has to be an essential service. We have to do something different. I recently had a colleague and dear friend who had a heart attack at 4 a.m, and it was 20 to 30 plus minutes for a sufficient response to get to where he lives in a rural part of the county. That's somebody's life, right? You don't know if it could be saved or not, but you have a child, a loved one, they're doing compressions for a significant amount of time, just waiting and waiting, and that those minutes seem like hours. And so I think we have an obligation, because this is really, I truly believe, an emergency and a crisis within our community, and the way that our state and municipal law is set up, that this isn't an essential function. We have police officers and, we have fire, but EMS is kind of like, well, maybe you get there, maybe you don't. And I also think, coming from a district that responds to close to 40% of calls outside of their fire district, there's an equity issue that needs to be addressed. But I do believe that people who have had some of these legacy departments are going to either have to come to the fold or pony up, or we're going to have to relook at what our taxing jurisdictions are. And hopefully this expenditure will do that. The only thing that I would ask Rich to consider is an amendment to packet page 109 that reflects on line 1 that the $48,000 for this purpose be taken from contingent fund.
I would find that friendly.
Is there anybody that doesn't find that friendly? Okay, that's part of the main motion now. Let's just get a quick turn. I know we're already starting to get into financing, who's going to pay for it, and that obviously is like a really big part of it. It's in the proposal. That's one of the things that the consultant will be studying, is what are the funding mechanisms. So we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. Any other discussion on this? Ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Wow. Thank you, everybody. Somebody want to move the minutes to the previous meeting, May 20th? Travis moves, and seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Any unfinished business? Thank you, everybody. We covered a lot of ground. Much appreciated. Good job. And this meeting is adjourned.